All right. Good morning. I'm at-large Councilmember Christina Henderson, Chair of the Committee on Health. Today is Friday, April 24th, 2026. The time is 9:02 a.m. We are in room 120 of the John A. Wilson Building. This hearing is also being broadcast live on the Zoom internet platform on cable channel 13, as well as my YouTube page at CMC Henderson. I'm reconvening this meeting of the Committee on Health for part two of our hearings for the FY27 proposed budget for the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, as well as the Department of Behavioral Health. On Monday, we held a public hearing for public witnesses, and today we'll hear from Karima Woods, who's the commissioner of DISB, as well as Dr. Barbara Bazaron, who's the director of the Department of Behavioral Health, as well as their teams. I will just provide a little context for each of the agencies, and then we'll get into it. The Department of Insurance and Securities and Banking works to protect district consumers from unfair, abusive practices while fostering an equitable business environment for regulated entities operating in the district. DISB's mission is threefold. First, to cultivate a regulatory environment that protects consumers, attracts and retains financial service firms to the district. Two, empower and educate residents on financial matters. And three, providing financing for some district small businesses. The Department of Behavioral Health, also referred to as DBH, provides prevention, intervention, and treatment services to support children, youth, and adults with mental and/or substance use disorders, including emergency psychiatric care and community outpatient and residential care. DBH serves eligible adults, children, and youth and their families through a network of community-based providers and government services. DBH also manages the school-based behavioral health program as well as operates St. Elizabeth's Hospital, the district's inpatient psychiatric facility. On Monday, we heard from nearly 50 witnesses for both of the agencies, including nurses from St. Elizabeth's. We've heard from some parents, some community-based providers, advocates, and others in the industry. They expressed some thoughts and concerns, some recommendations, and I'll ask some follow-up questions about some of the things they raised, as well as the documents that were provided to us in terms of the budget. For those who are looking for some of these documents, you can actually visit the Chief Financial Officer's website, cfo.dc.gov, and on the main page, you'll find the documents for the proposed fiscal year 27 budget, not just for these two agencies, but for the entire government. All right. I'm sure we'll have some colleagues pop in today. There's some other hearings that are going on, so they'll be around, and we'll certainly turn to them when we get there. We're going to start with DISB today, and then we'll follow up with Department of Behavioral Health. So I'll call up Commissioner Woods, as well as any of her folks that she wants to bring with her to the table. Okay, Commissioner, I need to swear you in, but it's easier to do this if I swear in you or anyone else who might speak today. So if everyone can raise their right hands who might be joining you in this endeavor, lovely. Do you swear to affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia in this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Great. When you're ready, Commissioner.
Good morning, Chairperson Henderson, Committee on Health members and staff. I am Karima Woods, Commissioner of the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, also known as DISB. I'm pleased to appear before the committee today to provide testimony on DISB's FY27 budget, which builds upon the successes achieved by the agency in FY25 and FY26 to date. Mayor Bowser recently presented her fiscal year 2027 budget, Grow DC. This budget sets DC up for growth by investing in education, public safety, health, and infrastructure while making it easier and less expensive to do business in the district. Grow DC builds on the mayor's budget from last year as the district supports the critical needs of our residents amidst a shifting economy across the region and nationwide. This budget also shows the mayor's unwavering commitment to building a safer, stronger, healthier, and more equitable DC. DISB regulates insurance, securities, banking, and other financial services in the District of Columbia. Our mission is threefold: to cultivate a regulatory environment that protects consumers and attracts and retains financial services firms to the district, to empower and educate residents on financial matters, and to provide financing to district small businesses. Every day, we translate this mission into action, ensuring residents have access to fair, transparent financial services and strengthening the competitive landscape that makes the district a premier financial hub. The mayor's FY27 budget provides DISB with the necessary resources to fulfill our mission. The proposed FY27 budget for DISB is $35.2 million, a 0.03% decrease from the approved FY26 budget. The proposed budget is funded by $127,000 of local funds and $35.1 million of special purpose revenue O-type funds. The FY27 budget supports 157 full-time positions, an increase of 3 revenue-generating positions from our FY26 budget. The FY27 proposed budget reflects a commitment from the mayor to continue DISB's vital regulatory and financial empowerment role, which positively affects the financial well-being of district residents and small business owners. Now I will provide a brief overview of how DISB fulfills its mission with the few recent successes and plans as we move further into the fiscal year and prepare for the next one. In FY26, DISB's funding levels for the Office of Student Loan Ombudsman will continue to support district residents through financial education, individualized assistance, and expanded oversight of student loan servicing practices. During the first 6 months of the fiscal year, the office provided financial education to more than 800 current borrowers and prospective college students through 20 outreach events. Looking ahead, the office is expanding its regulatory capacity to identify servicing errors and strengthen consumer protections through formal examination authority, ensuring systemic problems are addressed and not just individual cases. Another way that DISB fulfills its mission is by helping homeowners keep their homes and actively looking to prevent foreclosures. In FY26 through March, the Foreclosure Prevention Program has prevented 45 foreclosures. These efforts resulted in preserving more than $27.4 million in property value in the first 2 quarters of FY26. Through the department's District of Columbia Business Capital Access Program, also known as DC BizCap, DISB continues to provide essential capital to district small business owners and entrepreneurs. More than 80% of all businesses funded through BizCap are minority and/or women-owned, and the program also supports certified business enterprises. In FY25 and 26 to date, DC BizCap has provided over $9.4 million in funding to district small businesses through the State Small Business Credit Initiatives Program. The capital provided through DC BizCap was leveraged to access an additional $10.2 million in private loan funding. As a result of the support provided to those organizations, more than 514 district-based jobs were created or retained. DISB's Office of Financial Empowerment and Education, also known as OFEE, was established in FY20 to provide district residents with new tools and programs to empower them in their financial journeys. OFEE's programs provide critical pathways for district residents to improve their financial well-being across all 8 wards. Our programs, especially Bank on DC, Financially Fit DC, and Opportunity Accounts, continue to offer life-changing opportunities to budget, save, and build wealth. Some of OFEE's programs were expanded with federal ARPA dollars in previous years that are no longer available. DISB has carefully reviewed how this and future budgets can still provide equitable and robust tools, resources, and outreach to district residents. We are confident the mayor's FY27 budget will allow us to continue our slate of high-impact programming, and we look forward to continuing to forge a path to financial education and empowerment across the district in years to come. The district continues to be a national leader in captive insurance company licensing, and FY26 to date, the Risk Finance Bureau has licensed 21 captive insurance companies. These include captives across diverse sectors, from consumer and financial technology and healthcare to construction, transportation, and renewable energy. DISB licenses over 230 captive insurers, reinforcing the district's reputation as a premier destination for businesses seeking efficient and innovative risk management solutions. Captive insurers contribute more than $4 million annually to the general fund and generate additional economic benefits through jobs as well as meetings and conferences they hold in DC. In FY26 to date, the Compliance and Analysis Division, also known as CAD, closed approximately 487 consumer complaints and recovered approximately $280,000 for district residents. Additionally, CAD provided 17 community engagement events to connect residents to mental health resources, teach fraud awareness, and provide wealth preservation strategies through estate planning workshops and legal clinics. In closing, the resources allocated to DISB will play a critical role in supporting the mayor's pledge to run through the tape for residents and small businesses in the district. We remain committed to collaborating with you and the entire council on the department's vital mission to protect consumers, empower residents in their financial journeys, and invest in district small businesses. I am optimistic about the continued progress and positive impact that DISB will have on district residents and small businesses in FY27. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and I am happy to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Woods. And thank you to you and your team for helping in the pre-hearing conversations, not only with program staff, but also with your AFO to sort of better understand. Sometimes the budget books are, well, sometimes they're wrong. Sometimes they're incomplete, and they certainly don't always provide the context. So I have some follow-up questions based on some of those and some of the information that we gathered. All right. I want to first start with funding for information technology, IT, and agency management program. So that was proposed decrease by $316,000. So it's down to 5.59 million. Now, I know that doesn't seem like a lot of money, but I'm just curious, is there a particular contract that we're no longer doing in IT, or is there a new type of relationship that we have with Octo or some other entity that's leading to that particular decrease?
From my understanding, the decrease you're referencing is mainly in the purchasing of equipment. So there is a negative $319,000 change over from the previous budget. So the budget for this year, for FY27, would decrease by $319,000, and that's primarily attributed to the purchasing of equipment.
So that's what, laptops, computers?
That's my understanding.
Printers, et cetera?
Yes.
Sorry, this thing is often in the wrong space. Okay. In public affairs, there's a 190,000 decrease. What's that?
That's mainly attributed to marketing for campaigns and also advertising.
Okay.
I will say it sounds like a significant decrease, but we still have enough in our budget to continue to do the necessary marketing that we need.
Okay. And this is for the various programs slash products that you guys offer?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now those were some of the decreases. However, across the board, I think we're bringing on 3 additional FTEs. Weren't specific on which agent or which parts of the agency those folks are going to. Do you have any clarity there?
Yes, one of the FTEs is for our our securities bureau. It's a securities licensing specialist.
Okay.
It's one of those positions that was cut previously, and so we're pleased to see that it has that is back in the budget for FY 27. Another employee is for Risk Finance Bureau, particularly for a financial examiner. And then the last one is for our CAD unit, Compliance and Analysis Division, for your Senior Safe Compliance Specialist.
Okay.
And these are all important revenue generating positions for the agency.
Everybody likes to add that revenue generating, so we can't cut and take. No. Okay. For those particular divisions, so let's start with securities licensing. Were there already vacancies in that area?
There wasn't a vacancy. This was a position, if I'm not mistaken, that was cut previously in previous fiscal years.
Okay.
And so we've been able to add it back in to the licensing division of the Securities Bureau.
Okay. Are there any current vacancies in the, what is the compliance? I think you call it CAB. I'm trying not to use all these acronyms, but your
Com-
compliant acts.
Compliance Analysis Division.
Yes. Had.
Yes, but some of the vacancies are in the process of being filled. And so I know that we have an outreach and engagement coordinator. There was an offer extended to a candidate for that position.
Okay.
In addition, we have the compliance analyst for the Healthy DC. That position, it's pending selection, so it has been posted. We have conducted interviews, and we're in the process of selecting a candidate. All of those positions are in the CAD unit. And the last position would be the Consumer Services Manager, and that position has been posted.
Okay.
And if I'm wrong, Catrice Purdy, our Chief of Policy and Administration, will correct me.
Okay. All right. So prior to my tenure as having you under my committee, there was a sweep that happens from one of your particular funds. It's 12.6 million. I can't say I can give it back to you, but what I'm asking is if you could talk a little bit about what, if any, impacts this has had to operations and what future challenges you might have if we don't address this particular ongoing sweep to the general fund.
Yes, there's been an ongoing sweep from our budget, particularly our Securities and Banking Regulatory Trust Fund since 2019. And the sweep has impacted some of our regulatory functions. We have been able to work through it, but it would be beneficial if you're not able to restore all of it, a portion of it, so that we can ensure that we remain on the forefront of regulation here in the District of Columbia. It is important that we have the necessary positions, particularly as it relates to licensing and examinations, so that we can protect consumers and that we can also ensure that we're fulfilling our full regulatory duties. And so the fund itself, where the sweep comes from, is funded through industry fees and assessments. And so the trust fund is used to support the department's overall operations. So any ongoing sweeps have impacted our licensing processing capacity, particularly in our banking bureau. The funds that are swept from the fund as well also support all of the functions of the Banking Bureau, including our student loan office, including our BizCap program, including our foreclosure and mediation work as well. And so it is important that at some point we would like to see that fund reduce in terms of the sweeps from the council for that particular fund.
Okay. You said it started in 2019 or
2019.
2019. This is the fun part of your budget, is that it's all special purpose revenue. So we're gonna do our best. Okay, the Office of Financial Empowerment and Education, as you mentioned in your testimony, oversees several initiatives to educate district residents on personal and business finances. The proposed FY27 budget for financial empowerment, it has a $712,000 decrease. Is this mainly for the Financial Empowerment Center going away or ceasing to exist?
The 717,000 or 712,000 reduction is primarily attributed to the Financial Empowerment Center.
Okay. So it's my understanding that those funds are being redirected to other parts of the agency. Are we closing the center?
The center, yes, is
Okay.
closed.
Okay. Was it due to lack of engagement, or like, I guess you all saw a need for setting this up. So how will its functions be absorbed into other parts of the agency's work?
So the funding primarily for the Financial Empowerment Center came from ARPA dollars.
Okay.
And so those dollars were primarily allocated towards the Financial Empowerment Center. We provided one-on-one financial coaching to district residents over a period of time. I think the main challenge has been that staffing has decreased. We went from 5 counselors at the center to 2 counselors. And the overall budget constraints did limit the capacity over the course of the last year or so. So we did have to really consider how can we still provide the necessary financial education and empowerment to residents in knowing that we would need to close this program. So we have recalibrated some of our programs, particularly with our Financially Fit initiative, our Bank on DC initiative, to be able to still support residents. I will say, just for what the committee's awareness, that there are other financial empowerment centers in the District of Columbia that are administered through the Urban League and the Urban Institute. So although this particular one is closing, there are other centers that exist.
Okay. It's ARPA dollars, so I have to assume that the staff, even if there were only 2 counselors, were aware that their positions were tied to federal funding that had a date certain in. Yes?
I don't know for certain if they were aware where the dollars were coming from,
Yeah.
but that's how we were funding it internally.
I guess I'm just trying to get at, I don't like for people to find out that they're losing their jobs via a budget hearing. So have you guys had that conversation around the plans of the Financial Empowerment Center is going to be closing?
That conversation has been underway with
Okay.
the vendor. I know that they were aware that funding would be coming to an end for the program.
Okay. All right. So there is a RFP, or request for proposal, for a new vendor to manage the opportunity accounts. The FY27 proposed budget is for $845,000, which is a $295,000 increase for the program. Why is the increase needed, and how will it be used?
The increase will be used to provide additional match savings dollars to participants for the Opportunity Accounts program.
Okay. 845,000 is not the height of how much this program has had in the past, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Not yesterday. Last time I saw you, on Wednesday, about the FY26 supplemental, because this is an opportunity for us to talk about that as well, which had a proposed increase for opportunity accounts for FY26. Why is that needed? I believe it's 120.
So
So in
yeah,
the FY26 supplemental, there's a proposed increase for opportunity accounts. Okay. My apologies. We're talking about this particular increase as well. All right. So never mind. Okay. How do we, the match dollars for opportunity accounts, is that considered local or is that from SPR as well?
that's SPR,
Okay. Which one?
which
So for various SPR special purpose funds, there are some that come from particular, these come from assessments, or this is to be used for X purpose.
from the Securities and Banking Regulatory
Oh,
Trust
so
Fund.
this all comes
Yeah.
from securities and banking. Okay. All right. So in 2026, I guess, which would be now, excuse me, the Office of the Inspector General did a risk assessment report on all the special purpose revenue funds across the government. And they found actually the Securities and Banking Trust fund to be at moderate risk level due to infrequent policy reviews, limited risk evaluations, and they believe resulting in some inconsistent oversight. Are you aware of the OIG's recommendations as it pertains to this particular account?
I have recently become aware of it. It's my understanding that the assessment was published earlier this month. And so my team and I have reviewed the recommendations coming out of it. We have been working towards addressing some of the policy gaps that are referenced, particularly through finalizing standard operating procedures for our Securities Bureau and our Banking Bureau. And so we have drafted those, and I know they're currently under legal review.
Okay. So in terms of sometimes of how I know OIG reports work, does DISB submit a formal response, or I guess it's a little bit different because it's all of the agencies as opposed to just one particular program issue. I guess I'm just trying to get at what changes are you all planning to make in the upcoming year or upcoming few months rather around de-risking future maintenance gaps as it pertains to this fund. So you're reviewing now. I guess when should we check in terms of next steps?
So in terms of next steps, our plan is to address the policy gaps by the end of this fiscal year. I
Okay.
will say this risk assessment is fairly new for us. And so some of it, we're still trying to fully understand as to what it is that they need from us in addition to the standard operating procedures that we're putting in place.
Okay. Right. So really quickly on, as I think Councilmember Parker would want me to ask this. So as you know, the council approved the PrEP DC Amendment Act of 2026 in March. This provides new insurance requirements for coverage for cost sharing with regard to PrEP, PEP, and other HIV prevention services starting in 2027. Do you have an update on how you all are working to ensure that one, insurance companies are aware of this new mandate as they prepare to submit rates for plan year 2027?
So I'm going to ask if Phil Barlow, our Associate Commissioner for Insurance, can provide an update on that.
Great.
Thank you.
So we have communicated, this, I mean, the industry generally keeps up with legislation and the requirements, but we have communicated the requirements to them through our insurance advisory committee and other places. So they are aware that it's happening. We also, review the policy forms that would indicate information like that, and so we would incorporate that into our reviews of the policy forms.
Okay, great. So there shouldn't be any issues in terms of implementation going forward. I guess in terms of folks submitting the required documentation for rate
So-
review.
So no, there shouldn't really be any issues with that. I mean, we have gotten some complaints about some of these kind of things where when we've looked at them, I think the main reason for this is they were the way they were coded when they were submitted by the provider
Yeah.
to the insurance company. So we are looking to see what we can do to address that as well, so that minimizes the friction. Because again, when those things happen, we get complaints and we can quickly address those, but we'd rather they not happen in the first place.
Okay. We'll pass that along to Councilmember Parker. We worked really quickly to try to meet the deadlines that you guys outlay in terms of what we got to get in before folks submit rates for 27. So hopefully we can get that over the finish line. Commissioner, while you're here, we've had some questions from some advocates around oversight with regard to insurance carriers meeting their medical loss ratio requirements. So for the public, MLR, medical loss ratio, is a requirement that insurers spend a minimum percentage of their premiums on clinical services and quality improvements. And if a carrier doesn't meet this, then they have to pay rebates to consumers. And unfortunately, we have had in the past some insurance companies who have not met their targets, who have been supposed to be making some rebates, and DISB would be the agency that is providing oversight over whether or not they're following through. Insurance carriers are.
Are you asking whether they are actually paying the rebates that they're supposed to pay? Yeah, the answer is yes. I mean, they are paying the rebates that they are required to pay. In terms of the issue about, our preference is that the rates be set at levels where there are not rebates.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, and we've pretty much achieved that in the individual and small group. Early on, we would see some rebates in the individual and small group, and we addressed that with the carriers to prevent that from happening. But the problem is in the large group, that includes the Federal Employees Health Benefit Program and other programs that we don't have oversight over. So there's not a whole lot we can do to on the large group side to prevent there from being rebates required, but we do what we can. And again, we used to see them early on in the ACA. We would see them in the individual and small group, and we've addressed that with the carriers. And I don't think we've had any. We certainly haven't had any material rebates for the individual small group markets in the last few years, and I don't think we've had any.
Okay. All righty. Okay. Some questions to follow up. Yep. Okay. Commissioner Woods, you talked about captive insurance in your testimony as DC essentially, interestingly, destination in terms of captive insurance pieces. you testified that it brings in more than 4 million annually for the, is there more we could be doing there to, make us even more attractive? I'm not sure, how robust the captive insurance market is, nationwide, but are there some additional plans that you all have, that you want to try to pursue or achieve in FY 27?
So I would say that each year we look at how we can make our captive insurance program more robust. I know over the years, we've been very active in marketing the district as a ideal jurisdiction for any captive. And we have seen year over year those numbers increase. I would say that we are one of the premier destinations nationwide for captives, and we're seeing that in the types of companies that are locating their captives here in the District of Columbia. I will say that we've tried different methods to market, whether it's through the Business Journal, whether it's through marketing in other jurisdictions. And so our goal is to continue to market and promote the program. We have an annual conference here, the Captive Insurance conference takes place here in DC every single year, and we have been promoting that more as well, particularly for local companies and companies in the region as well, to learn more about the district's captive program.
Yeah, I guess sort of speaking about that from the public affairs and marketing piece. It's not just you all paying in terms of marketing to residents about products and things, but also marketing outside to firms and businesses around what services we can also provide for them as well.
Yes, so the program is primarily for businesses. So we would be marketing to businesses to consider the district's jurisdiction to open their captive program.
Okay. We have 21 now, or we carry 21?
For the fiscal year.
Okay.
Those are the new captives that have been licensed. Overall, I believe the number that was shared was 230.
230.
Yes.
Okay. In the FY 25 performance oversight hearing responses, and this is a follow-up from, I can't remember when I saw you, but I know it was cold outside. February. Okay. You all shared that there had been an audit that was an external audit that was completed for one of the programs, the opportunity accounts, and that had been completed. One of the questions that we had as a follow-up is that the audit was only conducted of 1 year of program activities. Is that traditional that we only do a 1-year audit as opposed to looking at the lifetime of a program?
I don't know if that's been traditional for the agency per se, but this was an internal audit that we conducted. And so our goal is to conduct this audit in this fiscal year, if I'm not mistaken, as well, and most likely in FY 27 as well.
Okay. I guess my question is, you did an audit that was sort of looking at FY 24. The program has been in effect since FY 19, I want to say, with the highest amount of money I think it received in 23, which also included some federal dollars as well. If there are concerns about the program, why not look backwards? Why are we just going to audit just going forward in terms of the future?
I think we took that approach mainly for budgetary purposes.
Okay.
That would be one, more money, and I believe what we had allocated in our budget would not have afforded us to be able to look at conducting an audit that would go back to 2019, but it is something we could take into consideration, but we would need to find out the cost around that. And if I'm not mistaken, I know we did do some research on how much it would cost to conduct a full audit versus just within that fiscal year.
Okay. If you know what the price structure breakdown is, that would be helpful. are there other programs where you have a traditional audit cadence, meaning every couple of years you're looking at X program, just from a compliance and oversight standpoint that you all internally just want to make sure everything is on the up and up?
So none immediately come to mind. It doesn't mean that we do not, and I'm looking at our AFO to see if he could address that question.
Sure. So there is a biannual audit done by Insurance Regulatory Trust Fund, only pertain to HMO and insurance company. So it's paid by the Insurance Regulatory Trust Fund. That's biannual audit.
Okay, biannual.
Yes.
Okay.
But Councilmember, it sounds like your question is about some of the programmatic functions of the agency.
Yep.
And so for programs like opportunity accounts and others, we have not traditionally conducted ongoing audits of those programs.
Okay. This is, I think, kind of goes back to a little bit of the OIG risk assessment, not just for your SPR, but for others, is that if we're not looking at them in sort of a semi-regular cadence, that does leave space for risk. And so that's just something that I'd ask for the agency to consider. Just a couple of additional questions that came up from the public witness testimony. So as you know, we had a representative from one of the union, one of the collective bargaining units within DISB. When is the last time that a classification audit was conducted at DISB, looking at position descriptions and salaries?
So I did have an opportunity to listen to the public witnesses, in particular, Mr. Slade's testimony from the union. And overall, out of the 154 FTEs that we currently have, 50 positions have gone through reclassification. 17 of those reclassifications have occurred in FY26. So part of our hiring and promotion process entails evaluating and updating position descriptions that are aligned with our current operations. And we do that in collaboration with DCHR. So any position that is older than 3 years must be reclassified for personnel action, particularly during the hiring process. That is a new requirement that DCHR has in process.
Yeah.
What we are not able to do is unilaterally reclassify all of the positions at DISB. I know that even for the positions that we currently have posted or hiring for, each of those positions had to go through some form of reclassification, and the process takes extremely long, primarily because DCHR is reclassifying positions for all of DC government. And so to unilaterally conduct reclassification of all of the department's positions, realistically, I don't see that necessarily happening because it has to be done through DCHR.
I hear you on that, but I guess then the question is, if the only time that a position can get reclassified is through the hiring process, you have some long tenured employees who have been in their position for 7, 8, 10, 15, add some additional years. How then do we go back, or do we not? Because even though you've been in the agency for a long time, at a certain point, modernizations happen, regulations change, and so a position changes. So how do we have those types of conversations with long-term employees?
I'll speak to, am I on?
Yes.
Okay, I'll speak to that. So,
Oh, you just introduce yourself for the record.
okay, my name is Catrice Purdy. I am Chief of Policy and Administration for DISB. So I'll say there have been cases where we have done that type of analysis. For
Okay.
example, in our banking bureau, as part of even our review with our accreditation process, they observed that we did not have different layers to our examination positions. So recently, I would say in the last year, we did an evaluation to determine some of our examiners were actually at a senior examiner level. So some of those folks were promoted they're in their positions, but there was a reevaluation and agreement that they would apply for that promoted position. But what we can't do is while someone is sitting in the position, just change their PD. The process for that is usually either a position review that can be requested by the employee or the agency with DCHR,
Okay.
or a desk audit, which I'm aware that the collective bargaining unit has requested for some of the positions that they're concerned about there being additional duties or a change in a position,
Mhm.
and that's actively in process with DCHR. So that's the process for doing it. If there's a concern that there are more duties or the position has changed over time.
Okay. Okay. I hear you in terms of doing this with DCHR makes it cumbersome to try to do it as we're just going to review everybody's position all at once for no particular reason. I think there is a concern that if we're not on some type of cadence, you could get into a situation where someone has been there for a long period of time, things have changed, but the position hasn't changed, nor has the classification. But it sounds like you all are trying to address those.
Yes, and one thing I will say over the last, well, actually since Commissioner Woods has been in place, we have made intentional efforts to review PDs and see if, and we've had a lot of turnover. Folks are retiring, folks are moving on. And so we've had an opportunity to update a number of our positions. So while we note 50 in the last 3 years, under her tenure, I'd say over half of our positions have been reviewed as we've had changes, as we've made shifts with where folks are sitting, even if they stay within the department. There's a lot of internal promotions, which kind of slows down our recruitment process, but gives folks an opportunity to move on to other positions within their areas. As they move, then we're updating that position that they're coming out of. So that's 2 positions that are updated. So we're only at 154 staff. So that's really an ambitious effort and
Mhm.
moved us along pretty quickly with updating most of our positions.
Okay. Um, while you're here,
Uh-huh.
what protocols does the agency currently have in place to protect employees who participate in protected activities from adverse retaliation?
We don't retaliate.
Well, okay, you say that. I know that that is the position of the agency. We don't retaliate, but obviously there are instances of retaliation that may happen and occur. Um, are supervisory or individuals who are in supervisory positions provided training on, hey, this is a protected activity?
So one thing we've implemented in the last couple of years is we have regular management meeting with all management staff, and we train them on a number of labor issues. We've had OLRCB to come to those meetings.
Okay.
We've had DCHR to come to those meetings. We also worked actively to provide issuances to our management and full staff on different policies and procedures. As we hire new managers, we support them with educating them on the collective bargaining agreement, and different parts of the DPM, which aren't pleasant to deal with, but we have to. That's progressive discipline, performance management. So there's a lot of effort to train our managers. We're actually planning a new segment of training to finish out this year in collaboration with a vendor to make sure that we're giving the managers the support, understanding that, how things function, the cadence of the agency is really dependent upon how well they're prepared.
Okay. One of the other things that the union has requested is that the agency produce an SPR report on how funding is used to strengthen core regulatory functions. Now, I'm not 100% convinced on that, but I will ask the question because I know that this doesn't necessarily always occur, but I think if the uniqueness of your agency in particular, where so much of your funding, almost all of your funding is coming from SPR, that employees have some basic understanding of how the agency is funded and what are the various funds. How much insight is provided to employees on the funding structure of the agency and where the money is coming from?
So we haven't necessarily had a formal meeting with all the employees to explain the breakdown of the department's budget. I have been intentional about keeping the staff abreast year over year of our budget, how much is in it, what we're proposing, um, the number of FTEs, if we're hiring new employees. That information has been shared on a regular basis. I'll also add that we've made it clear that our budget is public. You can go and look up all of the information that's in DISB's budget, and we share that continuously. I know that prior to today's hearing, we've let staff know that I'll be testifying to chime in to look at the hearing to learn more about the budget and the process and what we're presenting for the upcoming fiscal year. So those are the steps that we've taken, and we do encourage staff to look at the budget documents, and if they have questions, to let us know.
Okay. As you may know, Commissioner Woods, there's a workforce investment fund that is across government wide. It's generally a pot of money for collective bargaining units that are going through the bargaining process. The mayor has proposed eliminating that. And so we're trying to get a handle of how many potential employees this could impact if it is not restored. How many collective bargaining units are within DISB?
There are three.
3. Okay. Are there any outstanding are there any expired contracts amongst the 3?
No, the current, the master contract with ASME is under review, under negotiations right now, but there's nothing that has expired.
Okay. So I'm sorry, the one with Ask Me, you're at the table, you're
Yes. So the full district is at the table.
with Ask Me.
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any that are expected to expire in FY27?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Okay. And finally, Commissioner, there was a two witnesses, public witnesses who testified about the feasibility of a public bank. My understanding is that the agency conducted a feasibility study back in 2020. I feel like 2020 was a lifetime ago, particularly in regulation, certainly in financial services. Have there been any conversations of exploring this in the future, or I don't know, even sort of revisiting the old study to see whether or not it still has relevance for today?
There have been no conversations to date about exploring this in the future. Honestly, I was pleased to hear the public witness's testimony, but the public bank study, its outcome has not been brought to our attention in many years. And I think realistically, the feasibility of moving forward with the next phase of it, I just don't see that being feasible. Given our current budget, in order to do that, it would require additional funds to our budget and staffing in order to conduct any additional work around that.
Okay. Commissioner, we'll certainly follow up with your team as we go over all of the documents and things like that over the next couple of weeks. But is there anything else you wanted to say for the record that I didn't ask you today?
Just want to thank you for today's hearing. Thank you for the work of your team in preparing for the hearing. And also just want to thank the mayor for her leadership and investment in the department's budget. And thank the amazing professionals of the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking that help us to do the work that we have been called to do through our regulatory functions. So thank you.
Great. I know that we have a couple of legislative bills that are pending. My sincere apologies that we weren't able to get to that early in April as we had planned, but I do believe that we're working with your team to schedule that upcoming hearing in the spring. And so hopefully we can get those done before the end of the calendar year. But that's all I have for DISB. I think this is a record for a budget hearing for the Committee on Health. But we'll take like a 4 or 5 minute break just so we can switch over to Department of Behavioral Health. But thank you so much.
Great, thank you.
All right. And we are back with the team from the Department of Behavioral Health. Dr. Bazaran, before you begin, I need to swear you and your folks in. So if everyone can raise their right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to provide to the Council of the District of Columbia and this committee is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Great. All right. Dr. Bazaran, I understand you have slides today, or no?
I have what?
You have slides, a PowerPoint of some sort?
Yes, just a couple,
Great.
just a few.
All righty. So,
And I'll tell you when to start them, because they're, mid through the,
okay,
okay, I'll just say slide,
no problem.
okay?
Okay, go ahead.
Always trying something new. Okay, good morning, Chairperson Henderson, council members, and council staff. I'm Dr. Barbara J. Bazaran, Director of the Department of Behavioral Health. With me today are Adrian Reed, Agency Fiscal Officer, and Michael Neff, Chief Operating Officer. I am here today to testify on Mayor Bowser's proposed fiscal year 2027 Grow DC budget and how the Department of Behavioral Health supports her vision to preserve core services, protect robust health care for DC residents, and grow our economy. Mayor Bowser's proposed FY27 budget for DBH ensures that residents who rely on the public behavioral health care system have access to the care and supports they need to lead healthier, longer, and more fulfilling lives. Under the leadership of Mayor Bowser and the guidance of Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage, DBH supports healthier and stronger communities by working to prevent the onset of mental and substance use disorders and providing a range of community-based treatment services and recovery support services, primarily through DBH certified providers. DBH provides crisis services, operates adult and child care clinics, and manages St. Elizabeth's Hospital for those who require inpatient psychiatric care. As the State Behavioral Health Authority, we are also responsible for addressing the behavioral health of all district residents. Despite the challenges, despite the budget challenges, Mayor Bowser's proposed budget for DBH makes available a full range of treatment services for residents of all ages by phone, at home, in school, or in the community. It maintains critical services that support treatment and sustain recovery and funds projected increases in Medicaid costs due to enrollment growth. The budget also creates a new local benefit for behavioral health services, consolidates crisis services within DBH, and places limits on community support services to strengthen clinical care and to better prevent waste, fraud, and abuse. I will now present an overview of the proposed FY27 budget for DBH and highlight key adjustments. The proposed FY27 gross operating budget is approximately $360.5 million, which includes $270 million from local funds. The proposed FY27 capital budget is $10.8 million to relocate the CPEP, or Comprehensive Psychiatric Emergency Program, to the Adult Urgent Clinic site due to the development of the stadium project. The proposed budget maintains funding for core services that support our mission to prevent, treat, and support sustained recovery for residents in behavioral health disorders, including increased numbers of individuals being served who are forensically involved. The proposed FY27 budget includes $63.3 million for outpatient behavioral health services for Medicaid eligible residents, which is an increase of $13 million to fund projected enrollment growth, and a $10.5 million for a new benefit plan supported with local dollars only, referred to as the Local Only Benefits Program. In addition, the proposed budget anticipates $37.7 million in the federal state opioid response grant and $10.6 million in the opioid abatement fund to support substance use disorder treatment and support. The proposed budget includes $98.6 million to operate St. Elizabeth's Hospital, the district's only inpatient psychiatric facility. The proposed budget also includes $20.5 million for crisis support services for children, youth, and adults, so people experiencing psychiatric or emotional support can get immediate help on the phone or in person. I want to highlight that our budget includes $32 million in supported housing. Access to safe housing is essential to maintain recovery, and the district remains a leader in providing supported housing.
DBH offers a variety of housing options supported with federal and local funds, including transitional housing for youth, supported residences, rental housing vouchers, and housing for those in recovery from substance use disorder. During our FY25 performance oversight hearing in February, I testified about some of the major challenges facing DBH and our progress in addressing them. These challenges are strengthening the clinical platform across the provider network, rooting out improper billing and fraud, ensuring network adequacy and providing appropriate oversight of the provider network, leading the shift in school-based services to a model that provides behavioral health access to every student, and addressing staff and operational challenges at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. To ensure the proposed FY27 budget provides the resources needed to address these challenges, we had to make some tough choices. The key reductions include $8.5 million in mental health rehabilitation services, primarily community support services, $956,000 reduction in operations contracts for the DC Stabilization Center, which we believe will be offset by Medicaid billing. $1.3 million primarily through consolidating crisis services in-house and eliminating contracts associated with crisis beds and the Children's Mobile Crisis Service. One-time local funding of $950,000 for targeted outreach programs. $14 million from St. Elizabeth's Hospital, and I'll discuss this in more detail later in my testimony. $40 million in vacancy savings, which shows a 26% reduction across the board in all areas. I want to take a moment to explain our rationale for such a large savings, a large vacancy savings, which would be challenging to meet. In short, we expect to adjust vacancy savings as we anticipate the need for a lower than projected amount for the local match for Medicaid payments. We expect a decline in expenditures for community support services to continue. In addition, the dramatic increase in the use of substance use disorder recovery support services in FY25, primarily by 2 providers, drove up the match amount. We have stepped up our oversight and are imposing guidelines to support appropriate use of this service. I would now like to share information regarding how our budget addresses the challenges we identified. The first 3 challenges are interrelated. 1, strengthen the clinical platform across the provider network. 2, root out improper billing and fraud. And 3, ensure network adequacy to meet the needs of residents and provide appropriate oversight of the provider network. Addressing these 3 challenges hinges on using community support services as it was intended, to support, not replace, clinical services. As the first chart shows, slide please. The use of community support rose steadily over the past 5 years to a high of 152% in FY24, far outpacing the use of non-clinical services and out of proportion with the increase in the number of consumers. The next slide also illustrates this matter. Next slide, please. Third slide, please. Because of controls put in place in FY25, we changed the trajectory of increased spending on community support. Next slide, please. In FY25, community support services accounted for 69% of all mental health expenditures compared to 76% in FY24. In January of 2026, monthly expenditures were $11.3 million compared to $27.2 million in December of 24, a decrease of $16 million, which is reflected on the slide. Our multi-year plan to ensure the appropriate use of community support services includes limiting utilization to 200 units or 50 hours per 180 days. This is equivalent of nearly 2 hours of community support services per week. Limiting audio-only telemedicine to 6 units per 180 days. A provider may bill an additional 20 units of audio-only for collateral contracts per 180 days. 3, tying community support services, which are non-clinical services designed to reinforce activities of daily living, to the adult assessment tool, the DLA 20. To increase the chance for the best outcomes, this service will only be provided to those whose scores indicate they need this service level of support. Individuals who are higher functioning are best served by office-based clinical services, and those who are in the lower range are best served by ACT, the highest level of care, and mandating a prior authorization for services which require a provider to attest that they have completed a functional assessment within 90 days and have a current treatment plan with required signatures. I will now address the challenges of shifting the school-based service model to so that every student has access to behavioral health care services. Thank you for showing the slides. The proposed funding of $18 million for the school-based program will support all public schools with the more effective use of DBH or community-based clinicians and better collaborate with each school-hired behavioral health team. After carefully listening to feedback from our CBO partners and community stakeholders, we have made meaningful adjustments to our implementation approach for the school-based behavioral health plan. We are extending the full implementation timeline through school year 28-29, an additional year, and are retaining 5 to 6 CBO partners, up from the original 3 to 4 plan, based on performance, existing partnerships, and the needs for special populations. We are moving forward with our plan to increase access to school behavioral health services for all students within the District of Columbia. Discussions with remaining schools that do not currently have a DBH-funded resource will be completed by April 30th. By August 1st of 2026, we will have hired an additional 56 staff to deliver services to 112 schools, including schools that do not currently have a DBH-funded clinician and those transitioning from CBO service delivery. Engagement with our CBO partners has been central to shaping this work. Given the compressed time frame we are working within, we did not have sufficient opportunity for the level of front-end engagement with CBOs that this work deserves. We have taken that feedback seriously, and the adjustments we have made, including the extended implementation timeline and expanded CBO retention, reflect our commitment to get this right. Our remaining school leaders will be brought into the process by April 30th with sessions that include updated information on the environmental scan, the school strengthening work plan, and utilization data. The service delivery model decisions will be made collaboratively with direct input from the schools we serve. Our retained CBO partners will work alongside DBH and school leaders to deliver the model that best meets the needs of each school. Additionally, a case study to inform practice across all participating schools will be completed by April 30th. The last challenge we identified was addressing staffing and operational challenges within St. Elizabeth's Hospital. The proposed FY27 budget for St. Elizabeth's Hospital is $98.6 million, which supports 793 full-time positions, more than half of whom are in the nursing services. The proposed budget supports the workforce required, which will allow us to maintain a safe therapeutic environment and provide timely and high-quality service. The net reduction is $14 million, which reflects $3.3 million to align the budget with revenue projections that have changed due to the change in the hospital population, $2.4 million from restructuring programs, the removal of one-time funding of $9 million. However, the funding was replaced with $6.8 million in recurring funds, which in fact represents an increase to our base budget. We expect to see reduced use of overtime with more rapid hiring as we have prioritized the housing and with fewer employees in non-duty status to stay within this budget. $6.9 million in vacancy savings. However, I am committed to hiring staff at St. Elizabeth and expect that vacancy savings will be realized across the agency. The budgets for nursing and security were not reduced. Along with the deputy mayor, we continue to meet regularly with union representatives to resolve staffing and operational issues at St. Elizabeth's and to improve performance. Your representative also attends the meetings. Implementations of an electronic inventory management system and the work order system, which was of interest to the committee, is on track for implementation this fiscal year and will not be impacted by next year's budget. As we stay focused on moving to person-centered care, are guided by what consumers tell us about our service. And each year, DBH conducts a customer satisfaction survey. Last fiscal year, 541 adults and 384 parents or caregivers of children and youth responded to the satisfaction survey, which includes 8 domains. The targets for each domain reflects an 80% satisfaction score. You can see these data on the slide that's presented now. Participation in treatment planning and the appropriateness and cultural sensitivity of care received the highest scores among respondents. Respondents receiving substance use disorder services rated functioning and social connectedness as exceeding the target, while close care outcomes and general satisfaction with service delivery did not meet the target. Among all adult respondents, 74 expressed general satisfaction, while 69% of caregivers expressed general satisfaction. Among the adult mental health respondents, 69% reported satisfaction with their improvements in functioning compared to 77% of substance use respondents. For caregivers of child and youth mental health consumers, 69% reported satisfaction with improvement in functioning. While we are mindful that national outcomes of care and functioning are typically the lowest scored domains, in part because many respondents have not yet completed treatment, we are listening and taking heed. We expect that our continued focus on whole person care will lead to improved satisfaction with services. I want to end my testimony, as always, by recognizing the leadership of peers and their integration throughout the system of care that is supported in the proposed budget. The proposed budget includes about $5 million to support consumer advocacy and peer leadership and employment opportunities. 3 peer specialist certification trainings are scheduled each year to enhance job skills and peer support. Peer specialists now work in the provider network with treatment teams in community hospital emergency rooms, in our Consumer and Family Affairs Office, our emergency care facilities at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. DBH also funds 4 peer-operated centers. In conclusion, Mayor Bowser's proposed FY27 budget for DBH maintains core services, strengthens whole person care, and supports our commitment to provide the opportunity for residents with behavioral health needs to live healthier lives. Madam Chair, we appreciate the work of the committee and look forward to our continued work to support the health and well-being of all district residents. I, with my team, am ready to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Bazaran, and thank you to your team for, I know this was a quick turnaround in terms of preparations for this budget hearing, and so we appreciate the responses to some of the questions we had. I think your AFO spent 3 hours with my staff the other day.
Yeah.
Discussing some of these issues. And so we certainly appreciate it. And I want to say that on the record because, you know, lots of conversations happen behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, they can't happen. That 3-hour meeting, while interesting to both Adrian and Marcia, probably would not have necessarily been the most riveting conversation for the rest of the public. So, but it certainly helps us to gain an understanding of what is being proposed throughout the budget. I want to start with questions around the Medicaid local match. Now, I know that this is sort of a shared workflow, if you will, between you all as well as the Department of Healthcare Finance, but you have a part in your testimony that I want to unpack a little. So on page 4, you say, quote, "In short, we expect to adjust vacancy savings as we anticipate the need for a lower than projected amount for the local match for Medicaid payments."
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, based on what you have provided and what we have seen, spending on local Medicaid match for behavioral health services declined. Oh man, I wanted to use a Wayne Turnage word, but I think I will pronounce it wrong. So I'm just going to say significantly. From 70.5 million in FY 2025 to 42.1 million approved in FY 2026. Now, of that 42 million, so far to date in this fiscal year, You all have only spent 18.2 million of that. What is driving this sharp reduction in spending? And to what extent is this attributed to decrease in utilization versus the policy changes that the department has made?
First of all, I think there are several reasons why we're seeing the decrease. One is the policy changes that I talked about in my testimony, limiting the number of community support units to 200 over 180 days, making sure that people who need community support are getting that service, and those who don't need it, for example, those who need ACT need a higher level of care. Those who are more functional should have their services in an office-based situation and don't need community support. So I think those two things. The other thing is we have instituted an authorization process. And I think here again, that is so that valid claims of service can certainly be paid. But in addition to all of that, we've worked very closely with the Department of Healthcare Finance to really address fraud. As you remember from Deputy Mayor Turnage's testimony, we have done a number of things. One, we are tracking the utilization. If we see things that are out of order, we are then doing on-site audits of those providers. And in instances in which it appears that there is fraud, working with the Department of Healthcare Finance, payment suspension has been put in place, and then we have moved to decertify them. And so I think that this is a way of getting the bad actors out of the system, and I think that that's very important. We also, I think with the authorization process that their CIO, CoMagin, is instituting, we are ensuring that consumers know what services they are receiving, and they have actually agreed to those services, that the provider has done what they need to do in terms of developing appropriate treatment plans and so forth, and that the services are consistently used. Michael Neff may have other things to include.
Well, I have some more further questions on this. So the proposed FY27 budget increases the local Medicaid match to 63.3 million. So you've just outlined to me all the ways in which we're limiting, but yet we're adding some additional funding here. So what's the rationale behind the increase?
You want to speak to that?
I'd like to speak first about that.
Okay.
So the local match budget does propose 63 million, and the local match is often referred to as the local match, but it's also a program code in the budget book, as you know.
Yeah.
So that program code in that 63 million, 2 million is for the CoMagin contract. So I just wanted to clarify that. So the match budget itself has been increased to 61 million.
I see.
And the purpose of that increase is to approach budget formulation conservatively. We do project that there are going to be lower costs because all of the things that Dr. Bazwan has put into place, but we will not know what those projections are until Q1 FRP for FY27. So until that time, we have to make sure that we budget there so that we can make due on our agreement with healthcare finance.
Okay. Is there a particular reason why you all have funding for the CoImagine contract and that's not included in the Department of Healthcare Finance's budget? Or is it double funded?
It's, so I'd say, and I'll let Michael add, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Healthcare finance has money in their budget for the CoMagin contract as well. That's DBH's portion to fund the
Correct.
CoMagin contract.
Right.
Okay.
That is to
Yeah,
address our claims.
Okay.
the contract is held by the Department of Healthcare Finance. We then MOU funds to them to cover our portion for the prior authorization process.
Right.
I would also note that when you do a budget projection, it has to be in a point in time.
Yeah.
And right now, we're still at the point where we are registering care, and that's a requirement to provide it. In May, we'll begin a prior authorization process that looks at two different things. It's going to look at an assessment score on the DLA 20 and slot where somebody will land in terms of numbers of units. Could be 200 and 180 days or 100 and 180 days. That hasn't happened yet. That will cause a further reduction in community support as well as reviewing diagnostic groupings.
Well, this timeline doesn't really match up with our budget timeline. If you're not going to do this review until May,
The reviews start with the providers for community support in May. They are currently registering all community support in order to receive it now.
got it. Okay. Get all that? All right. Okay. So, I guess to go back to your line of, we expect to adjust vacancy savings as we anticipate the need for lower than projected amount. If utilization does not increase as projected, does DBH anticipate underspending in FY 27? We're like, are
Well,
you gonna
first of all-
reallocate the funds?
Yeah, we will have to do some reallocation, and we are really going to track our expenditures very closely. I have been having finance meetings with my whole financial team every Friday morning at 10:30, so that we can review not only the expenditure data, but also any revenue generation data that has come in. And with that, we can determine, what we need to do.
Okay. Does this feel a little like whack-a-mole to you? I think I had this conversation with the fraud division director at Healthcare Finance, but last year we made some changes to limit usage on a completely different service line where we had seen a spike. I think it was telehealth or audio only.
It was audio only telehealth,
Yep.
yes.
And then now this year we got to go back to community support. Is there anything else that we feel like perhaps we should address now before it becomes the new target of aggressive usage?
Yes, one of the things that we are currently looking at is recovery support services.
Okay.
Which are within the SUD framework. And we are tracking that very closely. We've already taken some action to do some audits. And as a result of that, one of our RSS providers who we saw huge utilization being done
Aggressive.
has been removed. They have, they're in the process of being leaving the system, let's say.
Okay. When we are making some of these changes, whether it be community support services, recovery support services, I think you mentioned that the limits on community support services would amount to someone, I think, getting 2 hours, approximately two
Yes,
a week.
right.
What kind of conversations are you all having with providers to ensure that these changes are not limiting medically necessary care?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that the institution of the DLA 20 as a
Can you say
framework,
more for the public of what that is?
the daily living activities, functional assessment, which is DLA 20. And so what it does is it really assesses the person's needs in terms of their ability to function effectively within their home, their community, and the environment.
Okay.
And so actually, that particular framework was developed in partnership with the provider community. And so we had many, many, many meetings talking about the DLA 20, and we now are at the point where we're implementing it.
Okay. How will you all monitor going forward to ensure that these reductions are not leading to an increase in crisis utilization on the other side?
Well, we do look at our data, our crisis data, both in terms of inpatient utilization as well as outpatient utilization. And now that we are really bringing those things in-house, we will have even better ability to look and see what's happening. And if we see that, then we need to make whatever adjustments we need to. However,
You guys have the staffing in terms of like a like a healthcare finance, they've got their data guru team. Do you have the a similar sort of that
Yes.
can look to not just sort of in general utilization, but to be able to identify for, say, a particular consumer? We can track. You had X amount of consumer, or in the past, you had X number of hours of community support work. Now I've seen you in the hospital for crisis admissions 3
Mhm.
times.
Mhm.
Okay, this is a particular
Mhm.
person. We need to highlight and pull that out, as opposed to just sort of looking at it in the aggregate,
Mhm.
which I feel like can sometimes mask some of the issues that individuals are having.
Yes, we do. And actually, Dr. Shepherd, who is our chief medical officer, and his team actually tracks data for those individuals. And we do provide clinical review meetings for those individuals and determine what the best strategy is for moving forward.
Okay. We've been joined by Councilmember Zachary Parker from Ward 5. Ashley, if you just put 5 minutes on, I'll just finish this one chunk on overtime, and then I'll turn to Councilmember Parker. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about overtime. So what does overtime look like at the Department of Behavioral Health? Now, I can understand what overtime looks like at the hospital. Put that to the side. But in terms of overtime for everyone else within the agency, what type of activities are we doing on overtime?
We have our overtime is, you want to speak to that? It's pretty much, okay. And then I'll follow
The
up.
majority of the overtime in
Is that
the
yours?
Behavioral Health Authority is approximately $3 million, and that's mainly in the Crisis Services Division, which is inclusive of CPEP, CRT, and Access Helpline.
Okay. So why then I'm seeing a proposed overtime budget for $8.2 million, which is a $2.2 million decrease from FY26?
Yes, that's because that overtime accounts for the recurring budget increase that we received for overtime in St. Elizabeth's.
Okay. So it's all together.
Yes, yes.
Okay. That doesn't sort of get past the part that actual overtime spending in FY25 was 13.3 million. And so far, so let's see. So far, you guys have spent already 7.1 million in FY26. This is a trend across the government in terms of everybody budgets less to be hopeful, but your hopefulness is not realistic in terms of our current actual spending in terms of overtime.
Well, first of all,
I mean, if you are already spending today in time 7.1 million, how possible is 8.2 million next year going to be enough money?
If I can start,
go ahead.
preliminarily, there's a belief that paid family leave, and we have to confirm, has been driving up overtime or the use of the paid family leave benefit. When more employees use paid family leave, then there's less staff attendance. So it requires those who are there to work more overtime. There's a proposal to reduce the paid family leave benefit, and concomitantly, the overtime should be reduced as well.
Okay. But realistically speaking, the overtime issues at St. Elizabeth's is not tied to paid family leave. It is tied to you don't have enough people.
That's correct. And that's what I was, Madam Chair, one of the things I was going to say, that is one of the reasons why I prioritized hiring at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. And CEO at the hospital can really share how many staff we've been able to bring on board fairly quickly. And we think that that's really going to not only address overtime, but it will also address other management-related issues.
Okay. Let me ask this then, Adrian. So you talked about part of it is related to CPAP and crisis response. Part of the budget for overtime is related to St. Elizabeth's Hospital. What's the breakout amongst the two? Do you
I
have?
can get you that number momentarily.
Okay.
Can I add to something that you said?
Sure.
We are working with HR so that HR can more aggressively recruit for those positions at St. Elizabeth's. But I want to put on record that because of the hospital environment, there's going to always be a certain level of vacant positions. We looked in previous fiscal years and our vacancy rates still existed somewhere around 11 or 12%. When there were no freezes, there were no stagnations in hiring as far as budget constraints. So I just wanted to put that on the record as well.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that. I just sort of, there has been a trend across the government where we say, oh, we only need $1 million for overtime. And then at the end of the year, you've spent 27. Right. So we just need to be a bit more realistic about sort of meeting those goals. But I think it would be helpful because overtime is encompassing of the entire agency, including a hospital, which I think a hospital function is a little bit different. It would be helpful to have sort of that breakout. I'm going to be over my time, so I'm not going to launch into a new question. So I'm going to turn to Councilmember Parker to see if he has any questions. Councilmember Parker. Councilmember Parker, you're on mute still.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I think you can hear me. I'm having some challenges with audio, and so I'm trying to multitask. It's good to see you, Dr. Bazran. I wanted to just start at a very high level. It strikes me that the overall budget is declining by roughly 5%, while demand for crisis services continue to grow. And how do you square those two things, that our need for crisis services are expanding while we are slashing the budget in such a significant way?
First of all, I think that's why we have had to do some restructuring of our crisis service system. You may recall last year, we actually made sure that we had, or a couple of years ago, we put all of the crisis services under one leader and developed that crisis service continuum. The other things that we've done this year is we are bringing the crisis beds in-house. Which will help us significantly. We are also bringing the child mobile crisis services in-house, and our CRT will also address that. And so what we've had to do is we've had to look at the services that are contracted out and see how we could restructure to bring them in-house, utilizing the resources that we have so that we can address that need. And we also are bringing in the crisis beds.
And so on that note, on the bringing CHAMPS in-house or the youth crisis team, can you elaborate what that might look like, the scale and scope of services?
Sure. First of all, we changed the responsibilities for CHAMPS. I believe it was a year ago, where CHAMPS has only been operating 8 a.m. in the morning to 8 p.m. in the evening, and our community response team has been responding from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. to ensure that there was 24/7 coverage. And so our community response team has experience already responding to child and youth-related issues, and we have trained staff on that team, and we will be actually hiring additional trained staff to do that particular task.
How many staff?
I think we are hiring in terms of specialty staff for children. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes. Yes.
I think we are hiring, and Jana Burhow, our chief, I'm going to have her come up and respond to that.
And while she comes up, I'm just noting here that there's an increase of about 46 FTEs. And I'm assuming that's because you're moving a lot of these programs in-house. While we're seeing an expansion of FTEs, it seems like there is a reduction also in personnel costs.
Okay. name
Yes.
and what you do.
Hello, Councilmember Parker. Yes, to respond to your question.
You got to turn your mic on. There you go.
Sorry about that. To respond to your question about the staffing adjustments that would need to be made, we do have some capacity and capability within DBH with independently licensed clinicians in the Child and Youth Division that we would leverage, both as responders during the day, but as trainers to CRT to make sure that our staff are brought up to kind of the maximum practicing to the top of their license or to the top of their training, if you will. But the proposal is also to add independently licensed clinicians inside of CRT on evening shift, on overnight shift, and on day shift that can be paired with a paraprofessional as a full team that could respond then to any requests for child and youth responses. We know that
So that's
currently-
sounding, I'm sorry, just jumping in for the sixth time. So that's sounding like a similar model as the nursing suite program. Is that fair?
I think that's a fair description. That's kind of how CRT operates anyways, in paired teams with response to calls.
Okay.
And
So how many staff total are you anticipating for that youth CRT division when fully staffed up?
I think it would six to eight.
And no longer will you be operating well, let me ask, what are the hours of operation for that team?
24 hours.
Okay.
In three shifts around 24 hours.
Right.
Okay. So 6 folks citywide will cover the city for 24 hours. Do we anticipate that that's going to be sufficient?
Well, it's the cross-training pieces of that then, that those are specialty teams with that kind of top of license, high degree of expertise, that also supports then the rest of CRT, because the rest of CRT is in fact already responding to these calls in those hours from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. So it's adding that expertise into that team and through cross-training, spreading it more broadly across the entire program.
Okay, one more question here. Do you have a sense of how many team members there were with the CHAMPS unit?
Oh, I don't have that actual staffing in front of me, but I could certainly provide that.
Yes, it would be helpful to just have a comparison since we are making the argument of bringing this service in-house. Like, what are the trade-offs that we're making both in terms of personnel, but also services being provided? And let me ask this, how many of those 6 FTEs do you anticipate are already within DBH and they'll just switch over versus you have to hire and bring someone on board?
Potentially 4.
So 4 more new people will have to be brought onto the team. Is that right?
Potentially, yes.
Okay, thank you. Related to this, Dr. Bazran, just in light of the conversations that we're having about youth, if we wanted pop-up mental health services for our young people to meet them where they are, what division, what team, what resources do you have at your disposal that we could deploy such a team?
First of all, we do have multiple resources. We have the team that Dr. Berhow actually supervises, the CRT team. But in addition to that, we also have teams within our child and youth division. And we have our school-based behavioral health clinicians who are trained.
So not school-based behavioral health, but I'm saying, like, if I said, Dr. Bazran, can you meet me at the NOMA Metro stop with professionals, and we're going to just roll up on young people and try to meet them where they are? It would be that CRT team that you would deploy.
No, there are 2 teams. The CRT team is one resource, and we also have another resource within the Child and Youth Services division within DBH. And they typically will go out when there are trauma-related issues or other kind of crisis issues, and they have been doing that for years.
And how are those 2? You just spoke about the CRT team, and I'm clear on that, but how is that other unit funded for fiscal year 27?
That is a part of our Child and Youth Service Division. and it reports to Erica Barnes, who is the Director of Child, Youth, and Family Services. Those are DBH employees.
Okay. I only have a minute left. Let me come here to the opioid abatement funding. The budget seems to not put any new special purpose revenue from the opioid settlement funds in fiscal year 27. There's about $1 million in personnel and about $4 million in subsidies. What impact will that have on our work to address opioid abatement across the district?
Hi, Councilmember Parker. I want to just go on record and provide a little clarity. The budget puts 10.6 million in for new revenue for the opioid abatement settlement in FY 27.
Okay. So I'm saying that there's no, so how will that 10 million support our opioid abatement work?
We will continue to support our grant-funded activities that are addressing substance use and opioid issues.
And if I could just, okay, that was I know we passed legislation making the pilots that I've been appreciative of permanent. And there's just a challenge around the team needing to hire FTEs for that work. Who manages that work currently within DBH?
Dr. Orlando Barker.
And is the anticipation that Dr. Barker will manage should those programs become permanent moving forward?
Yes, that would be under his purview.
Okay. I will leave it there, but if I had a follow-up question, I would just be asking if you could just justify the need for an additional FTE and the funding for such for work that is already going forward, and if you could just spell that out. But I want to honor the clock. Thank you, Councilmember Henderson.
Thank you, Council.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to also add something, council member, and that is in terms of the crisis services and supports that you talked about for youth. I also do want to share that we have our SUD prevention teams that are also out there. And so in some instances, they may also be able to help support.
If I could just say, Dr. Basran, and you're one of my favorite people and favorite directors, so I have a bias. I'm acknowledging the bias. And I take this with the respect that I mean it. I don't see DBH. I don't see the work, although I know the work is happening. Mm-hmm. And as we're having these conversations about youth, one of the conversations I had more explicitly with the mayor's team is working more directly to bring DBH out in the community in a more preventative way, like I said, at metro stops or even at these teen takeovers. And so I will follow up offline, and I'm glad to hear that you have all of these teams. I just want to see you. I want to see these folks out in the community and be clear that they are with DBH and they're actually doing the work.
Yes, we have some jackets and some, but in some instances, we, like the lettering is not huge because sometimes that does have an impact upon how people respond to people who are out there to help them.
Okay, one last quick follow-up. I'm sorry, Councilmember Henderson. Can your team just share some of the community response?
You plan to stay for another round? You can stay.
Okay, I'll leave. Yeah, I have to jump, but I was gonna say if you could just share like some of the community outreach your team has done, and I will follow up with you on it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're always welcome to stay. It's a member of the committee.
I know I have to jump. I have to jump to another hearing.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay. Dr. Basran, I see Mr. Chastain here, so I want to hit some questions on St. Elizabeth's. So the proposed FY 27 budget reflects some significant reductions across multiple hospital divisions, including clinical services, administration, housekeeping, engineering, nutrition. relying heavily upon vacancy savings. One of my concerns is that, you know, every agency has vacancy savings, but it doesn't seem as though any of those were reinvested to meet some of the critical needs of the hospital. So, you know, are there not any concerns about staffing, safety, et cetera?
Well, I can tell you that from where I sit, I have prioritized hiring at St. Elizabeth's Hospital. And we have really made some real gains there. And Mr. Chastain can share the list. It's a very long list of people that we've
Great. I
gained.
would love to hear how we got
Yeah.
updates from January. I
Yeah.
think at that point
Yeah, and he
there
will
were
be able to share that with you. And
82
I think
vacancies.
that that's really a positive thing. We're also going to be tracking what's happening in terms of the hospital is a priority. We are still having those meetings routinely at the hospital, Deputy Mayor Turnage and I, so that we can track in real time what's happening and make adjustments as needed.
Okay.
Mo-
All right,
Mr.
Mr. Chastain. So in January, there were 82 vacancies.
Mhm.
6 were for clinical psychologists. How are we doing?
Mhm.
We're making excellent progress. Good morning.
Good morning.
Chair. I'll send you this, via email, if you like, detail. So since we met last, there are, 13 staff on duty, new hires, 6 psychiatric nurses, 2 psychiatric nurses supervisors, locksmith, housekeepers, BHT, social workers. And at this moment, there are 15 nurses in various stages of recruitment. 10 psychiatric nurses are in the pre-employment background check, meaning they received offers, accepted those offers. They're going through fingerprinting, drug testing, which is required in healthcare organizations. 13 BHTs are in various stages of recruitment as well. 3 are in new hire orientation as we speak. 4 nurse managers are in various stages of recruitment. 2 nurse managers are in new hire orientation as we speak, meaning they're at the hospital learning the ropes. The good news is that one of the 2 isn't actually been at the hospital for decades and has gone through progressive promotion opportunities, which we love to do. 1 assistant director of nursing has been selected, is awaiting approval from the mayor's office. So there are 4 new nurse managers. Clinical psychologists, there are 2 supervisory clinical psychologists in various stages of recruitment. 2 clinical psychologists are also in various stages. So they're managers and clinical psychologists.
When you say various stages of recruitment, does that mean it's just posted?
That means in the instance of the nurses I referred to, 10 of those nurses had been made offers, accepted those offers, and are now going through the background check and fingerprinting as is required. As soon as that process is completed,
Yep.
they will come on board and go through orientation for 60 days.
Okay, but I'd originally asked you about the clinical psychologist. You said various stages of recruitment.
Yes, that means one of these 2 individuals, I think, actually is already just in the last day accepted and is on board. The other is either going through background checks or negotiations. One of the 2 clinical psychologist supervisors is on board and is being promoted.
Okay.
And we're just waiting for final approval.
Mhm.
Okay.
The locksmith is on board. The social worker I referenced is on board. A pharmacy technician is selected and is just waiting internal final approval. A security officer is on board going through orientation on site. There are 4 housekeepers that are in various stages of recruitment. 2 are in orientation. 2 candidates are in the final selection cert approval process, and then they will move to orientation.
Okay. So
Or
let me ask you this. So there were 82 total vacancies in January. If you separate out people for whom are in various stages of recruitment, i.e., We've extended an offer, they're going through onboarding, et cetera. Where are we at today?
Approximately 40 remaining.
You said 40?
Yes,
Okay, so
assuming everything goes successfully completed in the various stages of recruitment as I referenced. There are a few fallouts all the time. There are a few
Yeah.
that don't make it through background checks as an example.
Okay. There were several critical areas, including housekeeping, maintenance, and nutritional services that saw reductions in the proposed budget. Now, again, you guys keep saying that vacancy savings, but still concerned that these were some of the areas that were pointed out in January as some of the operational challenges, particularly in housekeeping around supplies and those types of things. And then in nutritional services, you know, Mr. Chastain, I know you say the food is excellent, and yet we continue to receive complaints about the quality of the food. So,
So Madam Chair,
Yep.
just in terms of, keep in mind, we had a major event in dietary.
right, I know the
We had a
kitchen.
fire.
Yes.
Yes, that had a major impact. We have remedied that through $3 million invested in remedying that fire incident. We are almost back to full operational pre-fire status. Very shortly, we will be. And so we'll be able to address the efficiency,
Yep.
the consistency.
Because you were
other things that-
contracting out during the
Yes.
renovations, and so
Mhm.
when will you feel like you will be back to full in-house preparation?
Within the next 45 days, we will be, if not sooner.
Okay.
No.
All right. So security services saw, I wouldn't necessarily even call it a modest increase. You know, one of the things that folks keep bringing, even up in these meetings, is around not having enough security personnel on site, even as the patient population is changing over to more forensic. Why did you all feel that there weren't additional resources needed in security?
Security is always a challenge. If resources were available, we would certainly welcome them and use them efficiently. We have 50, just a little bit of background, we have 52 security staff on duty. Half of those are permanent full-time special police officers that man the hospital and the patient units where assaults occur. The other half are in observe and report status and or checking in employees, very much like when you enter this building, you go through magnetometers and the staff there. That function is what we have at the two lobbies in the hospital to make sure no weapons, no items that can be weaponized are brought into the facility. And so that's our security resource and team in terms of people.
Yep. Mr. Chastain, you said if resources were available, but you have vacancy savings. So why don't y'all ever use vacancy savings to address your need?
Yeah, so we address security
Yeah, let Michael do vacancy savings, please.
Yes, Councilwoman, I'd like to provide some clarity on the vacancy savings. You asked a question earlier, are they being reinvested? And the gist of it is, the vacancy savings has been taken as an even distribution across the agency. So each program that you see in the budget book has a 26% impact. That vacancy savings has been reinvested for the local match. Because we believe we will save that amount, that vacancy savings will go back to each program when that amount is realized in Q1 of FY27 once we complete the FRP. So the vacancy savings isn't available for spending anywhere else.
Why does it sound like you all are creating a slush fund out of your local match?
A slush fund?
Well, a slush fund is inappropriate. Let's call it a mini general fund within the agency. Yes, a mini general fund within the agency
I
that
understand.
you just want to come back and tap to later if you need to.
I understand that the local match has actually, we have not budgeted the correct amounts for the local match in the past. So to make sure that we budgeted the correct amounts in FY '27 and that we were conservative, we budgeted the projected amounts that we received from healthcare finance. And
But
that's,
you all just said though, Mr. Neff and others, that you feel like given the policy changes that you have made and the oversight controls, that you don't believe that the amount that you have currently in the book for local match is actually going to be necessary.
we don't believe it, but we won't see it until Q1 of the FRP because we really need the data from
The data,
CoMagin
yeah.
starting July. So that's the issue. You mentioned earlier that it seems like CoMagin, the timeline is not aligning with the budget. Your
Correct.
point was accurate. That's exactly why we budgeted for it that way, because the timeline whereby we receive the data would be later than the budget submission. So if we receive the data and it does not show that the match is going to trend downward, then the local match is budgeted correctly. If we receive the data that the match is going to trend downward, then we know that we will be able to redirect those amounts back into the vacancy savings.
You see where the trouble is that then you guys get to redirect it and you take the actual appropriators out of the process. So I just gotta hope that y'all gonna put it in an appropriate spot. In a reprogramming. I mean, yeah, we can have that debate when it comes to a reprogramming, but also we get reprogrammings that are expertly tailored so that it's exactly $2 to $3 under what is necessary to come before the council.
I understand that. I think though, I do understand your point. I think though, a reprogramming that large will have to go to council.
Okay. Going back to the overtime piece for St. Elizabeth. So there's 6.8 million in overtime for nursing and behavioral health techs that's built into the St. Elizabeth's proposed budget. How much have you spent on overtime thus far this year?
About
The-
450 per, do you have that number?
Excuse me, yes, the overtime expenditures are 5 million roughly for the first half of the fiscal year.
Okay. That's not for everybody. That's just for St. Elizabeth.
Just St. Elizabeth.
Yes.
Okay. Just to check in on a couple of other things, Mr. Chastain, while you're sitting here. So, Dr. Bazaran said in her testimony that the inventory system was in progress. Can you give some more details about that?
What the inventory service now?
Yep, you said it's on track.
It is on track. ServiceNow is on track. And we've had all of the planning meetings. The system is now being developed, and the expenses, the finances to support that are in this year's budget. And so we hope to have that, and I believe August 1st. What is the date?
That's the project.
Around August.
I would frame it a little differently.
Okay.
It is funded by capital dollars, and
Mhm.
those funds are available. DVH is working very closely with Octo because they hold the master contract for ServiceNow, which is what we're implementing, and we're trying to see which vehicle will be the quickest. It will happen this fiscal year,
Mhm.
but to say that it's going to be August 1, couldn't do that to date. We know who the subcontracting vendor will be.
Okay.
We do have the statement of work has been completed
Okay.
with staff at the hospital.
Mhm.
So I would like to leave it as yes, the money's there. Yes, we're in the process and it will be completed.
Okay.
this
So there's
fiscal
enough
year.
money in capital for FY '26
Yeah.
to meet the need for this particular contract.
Yeah.
Okay. What about for inventory management?
Same
So-
system.
So ServiceNow can do both work
Mhm.
order and
Correct.
inventory,
Right.
and working with Octo.
Mhm.
Is it considered the same contract? Or
It is. It's a
it-
combined.
it will be a
because-
combined
yeah.
service contract with ServiceNow. All right. What about the system, for glucose monitors?
Yes, I have an update. Great progress. So the vendor's working with the hospital technical and reference technical staff. It'll be completed within the next 60 days, if not sooner.
Okay.
Excellent progress.
All right. Okay, I want to go back to crisis response or crisis services rather. So Dr. Bazaran, DBH is planning to bring crisis stabilization beds in-house and phase out existing contracts. I understand that there are currently 32 beds total. 16 are operated by CPEP and 16 are operated through contracted providers. What was the average daily census at FY26 for these beds?
Dr. Burhow will respond to that.
Okay.
Could you ask the question again?
Sure. So for crisis stabilization beds, you all are planning to bring it in-house.
Correct.
My understanding is currently there are 32 total. So you have 16 at CPEP and 16 through contracted providers. Let me ask it in a different way. Is the idea that we're going to keep all 32? Is that the plan for there to be 32 at the end of this transition?
It wouldn't technically be all 32 beds, because if you're eliminating the beds in the community, those beds are gone. It's the absorbing the capacity into CPAP as part of that.
I know, but are you not going to absorb the 16 that you have in community? That's what I'm asking.
From a regulatory standpoint, the
We have
beds at CPAP are a different unit from potentially 16 crisis beds. So yes, we received about $10.9 million to move CPAP and to expand that unit to include crisis beds, but they're two different functions.
Okay. My point still stands though. We have 16 beds at CPEP. And you have 16 beds out in the community. When you get rid of the community providers, are we still going to have 32 total, or are there going to be less?
This is our chief medical officer.
Somebody needs a chair, a mic, a phone.
Get ready to hit.
Oh, Michael, don't go away. Oh, okay.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh,
Jonathan.
turn your mic on. There you go.
Good morning, everyone. Jonathan Shepard, Chief Clinical Officer, Department of Behavioral Health. So I understand your question
Okay.
in regards to the number of beds. And so we're going to be reallocating and reassessing to see the number of beds. So we recognize that yes, the beds may inquire a reduction from 32 to 16, because right now at CPEP, we do have 16,
Right.
but we also are looking at a new location. So at that new location that we have, we will also assess to see, can we increase that capacity to see if we can match that 32. So again,
I thought a new location was identified. Am I
It has
mistaken?
been. Right, it has been. So what I'm saying
Yes.
is that as we build out that location,
I see.
we're going to be rebuilding and repurposing those rooms so we can make sure that we can meet the demand for that service.
Okay. So then my other question was, in FY26, what was the average daily census for these beds?
I know I have the average daily stay. I don't have the, I don't have that. I have to get that back to you.
We can get that for
Yeah.
you.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
I would love that to understand the difference in utilization between both DBH and what you were contracting out.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because while there may need to be adjustments to meet the capacity restraints or maybe not of a new space, I think if we're halving the number of crisis beds, that's significant. Regardless of where it's sort of located, but who has what is important. So CPAP is moving, you said, because of the
Right.
stadium project.
Yes, CPEP is moving to 35K Street.
Okay.
That building is being rehabilitated, I should say, to accommodate CPAP
Is the
as well as the crisis beds.
is the
Yeah.
construction happening now?
No, the construction is not happening at this moment, but it will be happening shortly so that we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Will the modernization / construction of the new CPAP site at 35K Street be online by October 1? If you are stopping the contract
Right, right.
with our
Mhm.
in-community provide, oh, look, Tia is raising her hand behind you. Phone a friend.
Tia.
Come on down. Feeling like Bob Barker up here.
Here you go.
And the prizes I get to answer.
Okay.
Okay, so I just wanted to put a point on the 32 versus 16, because I can hear the concern and I would be
Mhm.
concerned too. Councilmember Parker raised it as well.
Yeah.
CPAP isn't utilizing their bed. I know there is the perception that the need for crisis isn't being met, but we are not seeing that volume of patients presenting for care.
Would that be helpful if I had the data of how many? That's why I asked.
The data is zero. The utilization of the 16 beds at CPAP is zero.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to be even by
Mhm.
bringing it in-house and utilizing our funds more efficiently.
Now, why was the utilization of CPAP at 0? Is it possible that people feel more comfortable with your community-based
Mhm.
providers than they do feel comfortable
Yeah.
at the CPAP site?
I think that anything's possible, but I think the utilization patterns have shifted for CPAP over the years. In the community-based providers, you're not getting FIMS dropping people off at Woodley House or some. That usually happens at a CPAP. So it's a different mix that you're seeing.
Also, I think where it's located and the difficulty with getting there has really impacted the utilization at CPAP. There's lots of construction going on there right now.
Yeah.
We used to actually have people who were walk-ins who needed that service. We really don't get that anymore. And so I think that the location really has been a limiting factor. And putting at 35K Street, we anticipate that it will make it more accessible to our community.
And I'd like to add something.
Okay.
CPAP's utilization is not zero.
No, not the, she was talking about the beds for crisis stabilization, not the
Yeah,
utilization
so
overall.
From a regulatory perspective, you can't have a unit with more than 16 beds.
Right.
All right,
I
can't do it. So CPAP is between a 24-hour stay, 32-hour bed, and a 72-hour bed. After that, if the person isn't able to continue care, they need to be moved to a hospital or discharged to a program. That's just the regulation. Same with a crisis bed unit could not go over 16. Crisis beds can go over 72 hours.
Yep.
They're two different services, and we shouldn't be mixing them and saying these are the beds. So that's one thing. I think the second thing is there have been
I can appreciate that, Mr. Neff, but I feel like you guys are mixing the services by saying we have the capacity to absorb these other beds that exist in community within CPAP. So now you're mixing the two, no?
No, I'm not mixing them. It's very important that they're kept separated. That the plan is to build a unit for additional crisis beds where it will be co-located in a unit next to CPAP.
CPAP.
Okay, but at the end of the day, you still can't even tell me how many beds you're gonna have total. So let's say the unit for CPAP is required at 16, which is you said by regulation, each unit is required at 16.
No. You license 16 beds to be able to offer the services. That's your capacity.
Fine.
Mhm.
For one service is 16. Then for the other service, I have been asking, how many are you going to put there where you currently have 16 out? But that's not what you guys said. You said we cannot guarantee that there will be 30, there will be 16 and 16 at the end.
You can. It's a question of the utilization and how many
just
you need to fill.
I'm sorry. Let's
Okay,
back up. Because literally 10 minutes ago, you told me that the design might not be feasible for you to put 16 and 16 in one location.
It's not true. We actually are working with DGS to lay the plan out. We haven't, and they're in the process of kicking off a meeting with us so they can start doing design work.
Wait, okay,
Yeah.
so DGS hasn't even started design.
They-
So then it goes back to my question. If you can't guarantee that you're gonna be done by October 1, what's your contingency plan? Because you're taking 16 off the street. If you're canceling the contracts with Woodley House and some, which by the way, I think it's really, really odd that we don't give folks a heads up that they have to hear about it when everybody else hears about it in the public. But let's put that to the side.
Well, that's not accurate.
that's not that.
That's not accurate either because
Okay,
right.
that's what they said. But nonetheless,
That's not accurate. Okay.
if we're canceling those contracts effective September 30, right, end of this fiscal year, the documents that you all have provided us zero out these contracts for FY27. So how are you going to pay for it? If there's a transition plan, you haven't budgeted for it, or at least you haven't budgeted and provided the information to us. I've got a spreadsheet where y'all are slashing and dashing.
So let me address that.
Okay.
From one standpoint. So when we're bringing the crisis beds in-house, yes, we are going to have some savings, but we're also looking at the revenue that we're going to be bringing in because those particular services, we're able to bill for those services. So it is looking at a model that where we're going to be generating more revenue to be able to balance out what the startup costs would be to bring that service in-house. I do not have those numbers for you directly.
Yep.
But that is the model.
So if people didn't want to go to CPEP before, how are we going to generate revenue? Sorry, not CPEP for the purposes of the other programs and services, but for the purposes of the stabilization of what, as you said, some beds are 24, some beds are 32, X, Y, or Z. If folks weren't coming for that before, what's our plan to redirect folks such that you can even get revenue generating activity out of those beds?
Well,
Like, I feel like we don't have a plan. We have a concept of a plan, but we don't have a plan. Because a plan would include a timeline of not just we're in design conversations with DGS, but it would also include, and we believe construction will begin here. We will be able to finish out the punch list here. We will then be able to transition or at least tell the community, hi, we're open for business here. But in FY27, we're going to hold on to a little bit of our CBO contracts so that come October, it's just not anything for right now. Because when you start the construction on the new at 35K, you won't be able to receive patients at the same time that you're constructing, right?
So the CPAP site and the build out needs to be completed before the end of June of 27. It's the
Okay.
current CPAP is due to become a road.
Well, yeah, I mean, yes, that part is fact. We know
Yeah.
that.
And we have been actually working with DGS. They've been incredibly helpful for over a year, looking at sites, what's available, how much space do we need and all of that. We are about to kick off work with them probably next week.
Okay.
And they've been very involved in this and done tours of all the sites. What are our needs, measurements, all of that stuff. They're very familiar with the 35K street because they also worked with us to put in the stabilization center.
Yep.
Very, very clear of what that building can handle. So we have a longer timeline. Now, I believe and know that the budget accounted for $1 million reduction in that area for the contracts. The contracts limit for each one is $750,000 each. It is not totally eliminated. And the services can continue until we have the site built out.
But Madam Chair, I can tell you that we will not be without crisis beds, and we will assess the need and get back to you specifically with our plan, with our concrete plan, so that you have that data.
Okay. I Okay, let's
We'll
follow
get-
up.
yeah,
Let's
we'll
talk, let's
follow
talk
up
more
with
about
you.
that.
Yes, absolutely.
Your contractors believe that they have been completely eliminated.
Mm.
So whatever conversations in terms of that, because we should have some more on that. Okay,
Okay.
so as Mr. Neff said, June of 27, gotta move anyway.
Gotta move.
So gotta go somewhere.
It will not be there.
So we
It will be mowed down.
have a year.
So.
All right. Okay. Now let's talk about CHAMPS, or Child and Adolescent Psychiatric Services. Now, my documents say that you are eliminating this particular contract. Is that accurate?
Correct.
Okay.
That is accurate.
Okay. Can I just go back for a second? In terms of bringing crisis stabilization beds in-house, were you unhappy with the service delivery from community providers?
Quite frankly, here again, remember I said we had to make some tough choices.
Okay.
By bringing it in-house, we know that it will help us in terms of our ability to continue to provide the service in two ways. One, we can use existing, in-house staff. And two, we'll also be able to bill for that service.
Okay. Is 35 K Street your only additional asset beyond your
No,
building?
81 Howard Road.
Okay. I was just wondering, it seems like we're putting a lot at 35K. That's all.
Yeah, we have 821 Howard Road, and 35K and CPAP. Those are the facilities that we have.
Okay.
As well as the hospital.
Right. Okay. So we've reduced the district. Councilmember Parker covered this a little bit in terms of the hiring of particular pediatric or folks who have particular
Skills.
expertise in terms of pediatric. How is that going?
I think, well, first of all, I know the team has, as Dr. Burhouse said, has been trained. They have been providing that service already from 8 to 8, 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. And so they're not unfamiliar with that. And she plans to hire 6 additional clinicians that are specifically child trained.
Okay, but then now that crew, CRT, will now have to handle everything from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m.
But they do it already. It's a 24/7 service.
Yes, and also, I mean, like, how many times has CRT been called to a school? Usually schools are calling CHAMPS, are they not?
But also remember, within the schools, we also have clinicians there who can provide that kind of support, and they often do.
Yes, and then also they are still getting phone calls from the schools where you still even have DBH clinicians, because sometimes there is an advanced something. We had someone who testified about this on Monday. Even at the school, like, clinicians are great. And then they even have some limitations where they might need some additional support. But if there are only 6 people.
6 additional team members to the existing team.
No, she said 6 per shift. Is that accurate, Doctor? What you said to
6
Councilmember Parker. 6 per shift to cover the city. Is that not, am I wrong?
Total around 24 hours a day, but to that point, it's about 567 calls a year that are already absorbed by CRT. Even in CHAMPS, they're doing about 17 in-person interventions a month.
Yes.
So it's 17 a month that need to be absorbed into that
No-
CRT team with the support of child and youth that has additional clinicians that are already doing that work, with the support of the clinicians that are in schools that are also responding to that crisis response.
But I feel like you guys are using the data of the number of calls that CHAMPS was actually able to respond to and not the number of calls that they received, but unfortunately weren't able to make it to.
Well, it's not unfortunately unable to make it to. It's that most of the calls that they're receiving can be resolved in the phone call, that it doesn't have to have an in-person response. That data reflects that most of the calls that are coming in, even to CHAMPS, that 90% of that work is being resolved on the phone without the need for an in-person clinician response.
90% of the calls that CHAMPS is getting can be resolved over the phone.
Yeah, they're only responding in person about 17 times a month.
Okay. Let me ask a more random question. It's going to seem random, but I promise you there's a point. When's the last time you've had a conversation with someone at MPD about
Yesterday?
the types of calls that they're getting?
Oh, about, types of calls. Yeah, I guess you'll need to clarify for me
Yeah,
what you mean by
so
PD.
I did a ride along recently with 4D.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was with a veteran officer who'd been on the force for 22 years. Now I'm thinking, okay, it's 8 o'clock in the morning. It's gonna be quiet. Hopefully, for the 4 hours that I'm gonna spend with him. I don't need to see a lot of action, just a little to make it interesting, but not a lot to make it, dangerous. And first call we got was from a parent had called 911 because their daughter wouldn't go to school. Now I was confused. And we look further in the notes. Mental health. Okay. MPD, they don't have the ability to just call you back and talk to you on the phone. They have to go. So we went. And there are 2 other officers who were there. It felt like a situation for a social worker. Essentially, you had a young person who had already missed over 80 days of school. The mom was concerned. She didn't know who else to call. And in my head, I'm like, this is not a call for MPD. They're not here to arrest anybody. This would be a perfect call for either a CHAMPS or a CRT. And talked to the officers, they would agree, but they said they don't know if you're going to show up. So that's why 911 gets sent. So when you guys are making staffing decisions in terms of crisis response, whether it be for adults or pediatric, based on the number of calls, it's not reflective of the fact of the possibility of the window of calls and the possibility of the need. Because it almost sounds as though you're saying like, well, we only need to absorb 17, so that's not that bad. When in fact, you probably need to absorb hundreds more, but you don't know about them because everybody's calling MPD because they're not going to get a response from DBH.
That's actually a really great example of some of the work that's happening in some of that redesign, because you're absolutely right. Even our co-response teams that are embedded with MPD, a lot of what they're responding to, frankly, during the day is exactly those kinds of calls of parents that have called 911 because they don't know who else to call, to try to have someone come out and help them with their young person or their adolescent to get them to school, as the example.
Yeah.
We're even hearing that when we sit down and do our kind of teaming work with MPD with our co-response teams, that is a significant actually number of calls coming to co-response.
Right.
The thing that's interesting about that is co-response is dispatched by MPD themselves, and it's a little disconnected from the CRT work and dispatch process. And that's some of the work that we're in right now around even redesigning crisis services and realigning it with how do we best wrap our arms around that so that we have the right place for the community to call to attach to the right response for something that's a mental health response, whether it's for children and youth or for adults.
Yeah, and I'd like to also respond to that. We've been working with OUC also in terms of how calls are then referred directly to DBH. We have staff physically sitting in their offices right now in their dispatch. And so the issue is, how do we adjust the protocol to make sure that those calls that are behavioral health related go directly to our staff so that they can connect them to the right resource, to CRT or what have you, as opposed to just automatically doing a 911 police
Right,
call.
but the point that I'm trying to make as it relates to the budget and as it relates to resources is that you can't do that if you don't have people. And so we are reducing the contract for champs, which is a resource of people, to then, I think you say you're going to hire 6 additional people, but there doesn't seem to be any sort of further expansion of the capacity of your team to meet the need, not just what the defined need is today based on the calls that are taken. So like, for instance, on the co-response team that you talked about, how many people were we talking about?
How many people?
How many people?
how many
on
staff?
co-response
It's
side?
5 staff, It's
Five.
5 positions,
5 staff,
Mhm.
fully staffed?
not fully staffed currently.
Mhm.
We've got 3 staff that are backfills that we hope to have in place late next month.
And what are their hours?
Primarily day shift. Some of that staff is day shift, some of it is evening shift.
Could you use more people?
I'm not pausing because it's not necessarily a yes or no answer. That's in partnership with MPD with a grant that they have as well.
Yep.
For the co-response. So some of the limitation is around on the MPD side, what they've got to be able to pair the officer with the co-response team member. Ideally, once we're back to that 5 staff, we believe MPD may have another 2 grant-funded positions where we can get to 7. The idea is to have that co-response for 7 districts. But it's a little bit of a developing program.
Yeah.
So to answer that as a, yes, I need X number of additional staff,
Yeah.
it would be challenging for me to respond to right now.
I feel like, and this is sort of the thing, is that I feel like in terms of the crisis response piece, in some ways we need like 2 budgets. The budget for what we got today in terms of what's in the money in the coffers, and then the budget for what's the vision for if we want this to work seamlessly, such that I got 3 officers who's spending 45 minutes in a person's home doing activities that would be better suited by your staff, for which your staff is trained for. MPD officers are not. These guys are just compassionate, and they're fathers, and they're interested in terms of making sure that they could provide help and service. But if we keep reducing on crisis response, it's only going to just impact the number of calls that MPD is taking.
Well, and some of it for me is that efficiency perspective, right? That if there are workflows that can be made more efficient, if there's staff that can be utilized in workflows that make more sense, the answer isn't always, I need more bodies or we need more money to make it work. I think some of this work is around
Coordination.
right, using the resources that we have more efficiently.
I
and
could
better in
100%
workflows
agree with that, but I
that-
think when we get to the transition point of even dispatchers or folks at OUC feeling more comfortable transitioning calls, so it's not a FIMS or a 911, but they say, okay, no, DBH has it, is that they want to have the belief that you have enough people to respond in an appropriate time manner. Because if somebody calls, let's say the example that we were talking about, you have a mother who calls at 8. If DBH, because of limited staffing, you can't get to it until 6 p.m. that night, then
But some of that too is around the assessment of the acuity or triaging the situation, that there is a difference between an emergency response, which is a life-threatening, you need sirens, it's a life-threatening event that you've got to get to as quickly as possible,
sure.
versus things that are urgent enough that you need a response within the next 6 hours versus things that are urgent enough that you need a response within 24 hours.
Yeah.
So some of that too is, I think, around not only how we think about our workflows, but then that communication and the work that we need to do with the community.
Yeah, well, when they
around
call 911, they
understanding
don't
those
expect a
distinctions.
24-hour response. Or when someone calls 911, they believe it is urgent enough for that moment,
Mhm.
not for, you will get to it in 24 hours when we have more time and sort of capacity, right? So I think we still have to work on our pieces around, um, again, and we passed a whole bill on the council, right? We believe in crisis response. We believe in it as a tool that is more effective in terms of using our resources, but also more effective in terms of connecting people with the services and the supports that they actually need without involving folks with guns, right? And so I want I want your team to be beefed. I want you to have the staff at OUC. I want you to have the staff to be able to ride along with MPD. Even if we don't necessarily have all the pieces here today from a budgetary standpoint, I just want to understand what the vision is, because I feel like we're just moving around decks on the chairs and hoping that we can maintain the level of where we're at. Whereas what Councilmember Parker talked about, like, we got crises popping up all over the place, particularly as it pertains to young people. And when someone looks at the budget, not necessarily knowing all the details, they see that you all are proposing to reduce in terms of youth crisis response. Now, I know it's in consolidation, but that perceptions are important. Okay, I feel like I've talked about that enough, but I'm going to talk about school-based behavioral health because I'm not done with the young people yet. So, all right. So DBH has proposed $8.5 million for school-based behavioral health, which I believe is the lowest amount of money that we've had in this program since its conception, in terms of our growth to grow it. You know, Dr. Bazaran, the 18.5 million that's in the budget is even 3 million lower than what you told me a couple of months ago what was going to be needed.
And that
you
was,
told me 21.
and that was the 3.4 that was removed from pilot 1, I believe, right, Adrian?
From
Yes,
pilot
that was the
1B.
pilot 1B program
Mhm.
for 3.4
Right.
million.
Refresh my memory. What was pilot 1? Was this a?
That was the pilot where we were providing the resources directly to the charter schools. You call that?
Okay. Okay. I think I had what, 3, 4 charter school leaders who testified on Monday saying, like, we like this pilot. We like to keep it, especially if you are gonna
They did apply for it.
get rid of my clinician. Let's talk a little bit about the timeline though for informing everyone's involved here. Now, I don't know if this year is wacky, but the idea that we're going to tell CBOs in May, mid-May, whether or not we're going to use them for next school year would also imply that you're telling schools in May, mid-May, whether or not they're actually going to be part of the program for next school year or not. Well, let's back up. In an ideal world, is the environmental scan an annual activity?
The environmental scan is a living document. And so what happens is data is included in the environmental scan over time. And so it's not like you do it once, you add to it. And Erica Barnes, who is our Director of Child and Youth Services, is responsible for that. She's sitting right there.
But in theory, Erica, if we're using the environmental scan to make staffing decisions around who's going to go where, you would need updated information every school year.
So what
That's
we've
right.
done over this school year is our clinical specialists have gone out to more than 60 schools to participate in their mental health team meetings. While they're there, they're getting that updated information, making sure the information we received last year was actually accurate.
Okay.
Additionally, our program manager has met with some of the bigger LEA charter schools the Friendship, KIPS, Center City, and updating that information. Additionally, we'll be meeting next week with all of the schools that don't have a funded clinician right now. We'll be updating that information with them. I also want to make the point that the environmental scan is really just one piece of the puzzle. We're going to be looking at utilization data over several years, not just this past year. How many referrals the school has had, how many cases they have, what kind of programming they've already done in the school. And then I think one of the bigger pieces is having the conversation with school leadership.
Okay, but if I've never had a clinician, how does utilization data, will it negatively impact my score?
No, and I think that's a very small percentage who have never had a clinician, but we'll be working with them to also, part of the environmental scan is, who do you have in your building? Is their caseload full? Who are they servicing? Are they specifically dedicated to special ed students?
Right.
Or are they also servicing general ed students? And also one of the questions on the environmental scan is, what are the other duties as assigned that take up those workers' time? So that we're also looking at that. They may have 5 people, but 40% of their time is in meetings or doing recess duty or lunch duty, those sorts of things.
So one of the things the school leaders testified was a desire to be able to look at the data that you all have to determine A, is it accurate, or B, to appeal. What does that process look like?
We can always update. I mean, they can always reach out to us if we're not having a one-on-one meeting with them. I mean, I looked at the data and some of the schools reported, like their principal was doing therapy. That's probably inaccurate, right? So we are trying to get the most updated, accurate information. We're trying to just chunk it into schools that need immediate resource right now. And then when we announce what CBOs will be coming on, we're also going to be letting the schools know that it's not that they're not going to participate in the program. Their resource will just be different. And we'll be scheduling meetings the 2 weeks after we notify them to have those conversations about what are your school needs.
In the future sense, should these conversations be happening in May? Do you think that's late? I think that's late.
It is, I think part of what we gave the CBOs their mid-year data and mid-year evaluation, and we're wanted to give them a couple of months to be able to improve on some of the things that are challenges for them so that we can be fair with them. Yes, it is late.
So in the future, in an ideal sense, what would the timeline look like? So again, I'm saying, so with DC Health, for instance, in terms of school nurses, we had to put in a cutoff of like, if your school is not approved for existent by X date, then you cannot participate in the DC Health funded school nurse program for school year XYZ, because we needed to plan. We need to know how many people we needed to have, how many people, XYZ, what's the budget. And it feels like you guys are more fluid when schools are asking for more definitive, because let's say they're not going to have a full-time clinician that's provided by DBH. They might want to use resources to allocate because they feel like it's so important for their building that they could go hire somebody, but trying to hire or make those staffing decisions at the beginning of June is near impossible.
I agree with what you're saying. I mean,
Okay.
that's definitely a weakness. And I think in a perfect world, from the feedback that we've gotten from school leaders and the Charter Board Alliance, is exactly what they testified to on Monday, is that they're making those budget decisions in January. So
Yeah.
that's when we should be having those conversations, or even before January, having those conversations about what their needs are going to be for the next school year. I agree with you. That's
Okay. So the new plan relies on hiring staff for both FY26 and FY27. FY26, oh, I wrote it down, but I don't remember how many people you were supposed to hire.
We said 24, and what we decided, 3 of those positions were going to be monitors, and we've used existing staff for those. So our target was 21. We have hired 13 clinicians.
Okay.
We have the the rest of those positions, the 8 will be prevention specialists. And we have our first screening for the prevention specialist that was posted 2 weeks ago, or a little over 2 weeks ago. And the screening process is taking a little bit of time because we had over 100 applications for
Okay.
8 positions.
What's the difference between a clinician and a prevention
So a
specialist?
clinician is a licensed clinician who has a master's and can provide clinical services.
Okay.
A prevention specialist, we're asking for a bachelor's degree, and they're going to be doing all of the prevention in the classrooms, the evidence-based prevention programs in the classroom, and possibly some early intervention skill building, like anger management, or some of the lower level early intervention programming.
Okay. So for FY 27, how many people?
4 clinicians we've already hired, and the way that we have set it up with HR is Melissa Willis, who's the program manager of school-based, and I meet with our director of HR once a week. We have, I guess it's rolling applications where we're getting a screening every 3 weeks for those positions.
Okay.
And it gives Melissa and her team to interview the folks that are on the cert. The last cert, I do want to say, for the grade 11 position, we had 28 people on the cert, and we were able to hire 10 off of that cert.
Okay. So you're going to need some CBOs for FY 27.
Right, we said that we would keep 5 to 6.
Okay. For how many schools?
So again, we don't know which CBOs we're going to keep, so it's a rough estimate, but it looks like 53, a minimum of 53.
Okay. One of the other things that was brought up in the testimony was how, I guess on the evaluation rubric, if you have staff to serve specialized populations like English language learners, et cetera, it was the same point allocation as if you submitted an annual report.
The 1 to 2, yeah.
I feel like the whole point is to sort of make sure that the specialized population, like that, it should actually be a boost, not a.
Yeah.
We talked about
We
that after
addressed
we heard
that.
that testimony, because that was the first bit of feedback we received. That one category has special populations, and also if their staff is certified in a particular model, therapy model. So we are absolutely willing to weigh that area of, more than the other components of the NOGA that they need to be compliant with.
Okay. Not gonna lie to y'all. This feels real squishy to me still, that we're like, we are building the plane as we are flying it. And I think our hope from last budget was that we would have taken a year to have a super solid plan, and this plan still feels squishy to me.
So I want to also clarify something. We're hiring the staff for FY 27 and FY 26.
Yep.
We're anticipating that the supervisors will come on July 1st, get them trained up, and the staff, the clinicians and the prevention specialist will come on actually July 27th, because that's the payday, the Monday after payday.
Yep.
So I think that folks were concerned that we were only going to be able to start posting positions
In
on
October.
October, and that would have led us into not being able to hire until January or February, or
Right.
with the hiring process. So I do want to clarify that we already are hiring people and making offers for the July 27th start date or the July 1st or whatever that pay period is at the beginning of July. And we anticipate that there will be, our staff will be, trained, go through our orientation, be available for pre-service in the schools. And then there will be a transition with the CBOs, to transition the cases if that is necessary, so that there is no gap in service and that students and families are getting the services they deserve.
Okay. All right. I want to switch over to talking about MHRS local. So the proposed budget includes a $8.5 million reduction to local only mental health rehabilitation services, which serves residents who meet income thresholds, but they are ineligible for Medicaid. Dr. Bazaran, your testimony references multiple behavioral health benefit plans for non-Medicaid populations. Is it possible for us to get an overview for each of these plans, including the
Yes,
services?
certainly. Yeah, we actually have that document.
Okay. Are individuals enrolled in Alliance or the basic health plan? What do we call it? Healthy DC. Eligible to receive ACT services?
Yes.
Okay. What about community support?
Community support in our basic plan?
Mhm.
No.
Okay. What about recovery support?
Yes.
In
go
conjunction.
Oh, hold on. You gotta
ahead.
turn your mic
Go
on.
ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes, RSS is available for the substance use benefit in conjunction with residential treatment.
Mhm.
That's a requirement for ASAM criteria.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. What about for Alliance?
Same.
Same, yeah.
Except for, and then maybe just to clarify it, Dr. Bazaran, because when I asked about ACT services, you said for the basic health plan, but you didn't say for the Alliance.
No. No.
You only said one, so I'm
Yeah.
I'm confirming that's the case, or maybe you meant to mention both.
So
Go ahead. I'm
There-
confirming that
there-
ACT is.
our
available.
benefit plan for local only will be for three groups: Alliance, Quimby's, qualified Medicare beneficiaries
Yep.
that can't get full services because it's a rehab model.
Yep.
And then the smallest group, between 350 to 500 people that are entering the system and have not been screened for eligibility. So they need to go through the screening process through DCAS. And of that group, 98% convert to Medicaid. But so those are our three groups that fall in, and the benefit plan is the same services for all of those people.
Right, and one of the decisions we made, one of the policy choices we made is that people who need ACT, we wanted to make sure that they could continue with ACT services because those are the people who are most severely impacted by their mental health issues.
How many residents currently rely on local only for outpatient and MHRS?
About 5,000.
5,000. Okay. And so you all believe that if these services are eliminated, it can be absorbed in other benefit plans?
No, the service is not being eliminated. We created a new benefit plan.
Right.
And so the area that the amount available for that plan is 10.5 million, and it's in two categories. The way that the reduction was made, it looks like we have $346,000. It's not true. We have 10.5 million.
Okay.
So there's 10.2 million that's from H04311, which is adult mental health substance use disorders. It's a category.
Okay.
And the one that had all the money taken out of it was local only MHRS, which is now left with 346,000. So the two of those together is 10.546.
Okay, so I mean, at least from the documents I have and understanding is that the MHRS local going decreasing by 8.5 eliminates outpatient services except for CPAP, the stabilization center, CRT, and crisis beds. Am I mistaken?
We have revisited that and expanded the services. It's a clinically based model now. So it has therapies, diagnostic assessments, evaluation and management. ACT is available throughout because even for people who lost eligibility, we don't want them not to be in ACT, but it's a full clinically based service.
Okay. I'm gonna ask some more details on that and follow up, but I guess I'm just trying to understand, at least also for the public too. You're saying, oh no, we're gonna have this full array of services and yet we're taking 8.5 million out.
Yes.
So how do you get the decrease if everybody still gets to be
You don't
seen?
get community support, which is not clinical,
Right.
and that's about $6.3 million alone. And then it's some other services will see lower utilization, RSS, not associated with SUD residential, for example.
Okay,
where
so
it
the
is
bulk of this
required.
decrease are coming out of RSS and community support.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let's talk about your federal grants. You guys know I don't like to ever leave money on the table. Y'all keep leaving the monies, and I don't think that this current administration is gonna let you keep rolling that money on over. All right, so we reviewed your federal grants. So we've got underspending and several SAMHSA funded, including COVID supplemental, ARPA funding. ARPA's now obviously is it'll be gone, but so for example, ARPA substance abuse prevention treatment block grant, the last amount that lapsed is about 4.1 million, which was 74% of the award. The ARPA community mental health block grant lapsed 1.1 million. How are we going to get better at spending our SAMHSA money?
First of all, one of the things we're doing with SAMHSA money is looking at how that resource can be used to fund some of the requests that are coming to the opioid abatement fund.
Yeah.
So
Come on.
we can coordinate. Well, hey, look, so we can coordinate that, and that is one way of doing it. And the other thing is to look at our grant making process to see how we can speed it up so that we can get the grants out sooner.
Councilwoman, we've also increased our cadence of our financial meetings
Okay.
so that we can alert everyone who is responsible for spending more frequently. And we've also preloaded funding in anticipation of any carryover that we may have.
Yep.
Doing that in the past has bought us 3 or more months of operational time to execute.
Okay. I mean, are there, and you guys have grants management people out the wazoo, so I know it's not a staffing problem. It might be a communication problem in terms of the staff to your grantees, but if someone, a grantee, is consistently not able to meet their mark, while we have such appreciation for what they do in the community, sometimes we got to let them go.
I agree with that. And I want to clarify 2 things, not for you, but for the public and others. When we speak about grant spending, sometimes people think that they're just the grants that we award to the public.
No.
But it's also internal spending on personnel services, contract supplies, and things like that, that contributed to the underspending. So I wanted to clarify that. And on the grantee side, we're working with the grants director to do what's similarly done on the contract side. If we see that grantees are underspending or that they're not in compliance with submitting their invoices on time, then the grants director is working with legal so that they can provide them a letter and that they'll have no claims against the district for that payment, which gives the agency time to redirect those funds to another purpose.
Okay.
Right.
Mr. Neff, how's that grants management system going? Your mic's not on.
It's going. I wish it were going better. We are still having issues with the transfer of money fully to Department of Health. They are working and have hired staff to begin setting it up to move it to our, oh, fresh news, they got their first payment. I have better news. Thank you, Omar.
Omar coming through. Good news.
So yeah, that's been, so the holdup there is, you have your system, they're working diligently because it has to be able to be transferred to us. So it has to have certain configuration done.
Right.
They've been working on that and
So let me get this straight. You guys are doing an interagency transfer to DC Health to piggyback on their contract? Or
it is their system.
to piggyback
We're
on
getting
their
a
system?
Copy of their system,
Mhm.
already set up to run grants.
Interesting.
Mhm.
You would think if it's because you guys are within the same government, this would go faster. So now that they've received their payment, when will you get the product? Phone a friend.
Omar, come on.
Come on to the table, Omar. This is an excellent professional development opportunity. If you want to introduce yourself for the record. Oh, you got to turn your, there you go.
Good morning. My name is Omar Newland, and I'm the Chief Information Officer at DBH. We're targeting to have it complete by the end of this fiscal year, this current fiscal year, actually.
Omar, that's months, Omar. Wouldn't it be great if we could have this in place before the start of the next year's grants?
That would be great. However, we would like a system that not only meets the standards and thresholds of DBH, but something that will scale and move forward for the next 10 to 20 years. So it takes time to do the transfer. It takes time to do the various implementation work with respect to having to go live that is within this actual fiscal year.
And not to mention to port the data out of Excel sheets and other things to load the system. It's paper now.
Yep. Okay.
But it's coming.
I just want to though, note for the record, right? Like we've been talking about this for like a year solid. Not with you, Omar. This is the first time I'm seeing you. Hello, welcome. But they know. The rest of them sort of know. Is there anything that we could do to be helpful in getting our colleagues at DC Health to speed up the process? Or are you feeling fairly confident that we're moving in the right direction?
We're actually on track. So we've had ongoing sessions over the past 2 months. Just to give you some background, the MOU with regards to actually migrating their system over was signed this year in January.
Okay.
And then recently, as of this week, I've been engaging with the CIO at DC Health in order to start moving this along. So this is, as stated before, it's on track.
Okay. Director Bazaran, and sort of going back to some of that conversation that we were having about some of the grant activities that have come to the opioid abatement fund sort of going on to SOAR. Have we done that analysis to make sure that some of these are the same allowable uses? And are there any grants that should be moved sooner to SOAR funding as opposed to getting another round of opioid abatement funding?
We looked at, yes, we looked very closely at that and did do some analysis in terms of, because remember, SOAR has very specific grant requirements to kind of do a crosswalk to see what we're currently funding that could be more appropriately funded in SOAR. And our director of the opioid abatement fund and our director of SUD of the SOAR grant have really worked together to do that kind of crosswalk. So
Okay.
that in the future, we'll be able to really move things forward.
So there's one thing that we've been funding through opioid abatement. It's in the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner. It's the opioid surveillance work that they've been
Right.
doing. I don't know if that fits the SOAR criteria because it's not directly dealing with
So,
patients or consumers.
I don't think that was one of the things that we could move over. But we
Okay.
do have that funded through the.
Is that something you all can share with us, the crosswalk piece, just so we kind of have some knowledge around like,
Mhm.
what are the overlapping activities? Or you know what, better, no, that plus also, I guess, allowable uses for SOAR under federal, under this new administration, I know has changed. So if you guys have an updated document on like what you can actually spend the money on, that would be helpful.
Yes.
I know that
and if you
changes. I know.
I don't need to share.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know. Okay, staying sort of in the substance use area. So stabilization center, you have the first one that's open. Now maybe we aren't seeing it, and maybe it's there, but the funding for the operations of the second stabilization, is that included in the FY27 budget?
Isn't it in? Yes. The opioid abatements, I mean, the crisis center, I think is that in 26.
The one in Ward 1.
Mhm.
It's currently under construction.
Well, due to open in January, and we're looking at the current contract and see if we can get savings from that to start the second one. Right now, there isn't set aside second money for the contract. But that program has been very, very successful. And they've done very well at being able to bill for services and bring in revenue, which then offsets the amount of the contract. So we're looking at what might be available for that.
So is this suggesting that you all would want the same vendor who's doing the first stabilization center to do the second?
No,
stabilization?
actually, it will be competitive. It's a
Okay.
competitive bid, and whoever provides the most effective submission will get the bid.
Have you guys alerted council member from Ward 1 that there is not funding for this operation of the second stabilization center in the budget?
I have talked with, first of all, also the date for operations has moved, and I have been in communication with Council Member Nadeau. We have not specifically talked about the funding.
Okay. So January is the new timeline. Okay.
Perhaps.
I would tell you, I was over there a couple of weeks ago. I had to get something from the Giant, and I was like, it's a lot of, there's no windows on that
Perhaps
building.
January is what yeah.
A lot of active construction.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
not in sort of punch lists. We're still very much in putting up walls.
Yeah, it was a total rehab. I mean, it's a building that hadn't been occupied in almost 50 years.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So and sort of speaking about grants, but on the opioid front, we've been contacted by numerous grantees regarding delays in administration of the opioid abatement settlement grant funds, as well as some concerns about shifting policies. Some of the grantees awarded or stated that their awards were made in the summer with an anticipated start date of October 1, 2025, but that even for grants that were awarded last summer, the contracting process on those grants have not yet been completed and funds have not yet been dispersed. So what's the delay on releasing those funds? Because I know you have them. I know they've been
Yes.
loaded. So why aren't we able to sort of wrap this up?
Well, I think, and this is something certainly that I am aware of, and a part of it is that a grantee received an award letter.
Yep.
Saying that you have been awarded this grant for X. Then there is a process of going through their budget to make sure that their budget and the allocation is appropriate and consistent, with, our requirements. And that back and forth has taken a long time for a lot of these grantees, a long time. And that has been a part of the delay.
Should it not be the reverse?
Um,
Like, shouldn't I have that conversation with you of giving you a letter saying you got the money?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, but
Okay.
that's a process that's in place right now.
Okay. So how many grantees who were awarded last summer haven't yet gotten their money?
I don't have the data, but I can get that to you.
Okay. I just think that's important. Are we launching a new round this summer?
Well, it depends on whether or not we get the funds that we have been alerted we might get verbally, but I don't have anything in writing. If
Yep.
that happens, then yes.
Who would know that? OAG?
Yes.
Okay. All right. We could follow up with OAG to
Mhm.
figure out what that is. All right. So I was pleased to see you guys are saying, yay, you see the value in the court urgent care clinic. Yay. Proposed to fund through the opioid abatement fund.
Right.
Beyond this one, are there any other programs or initiatives that you all are proposing to be funded using that money?
In terms of what's being funded through opioid abatement,
Yeah, for FY27.
for FY27.
Is there anything
Uh,
else beyond the court urgent care clinic?
And here again, I can get you that information.
All right. The district's overdose data to action grant, which is administered by DC Health, has been significantly reduced. It was 12 million in FY26. It's going to be 6.5 million in FY27. Given DBH's reliance on overdose data and the cross-agency coordination, do we think that this $5.6 million reduction is going to impact the department's ability to monitor trends and target interventions?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, we can ask DC Health.
Because you're telling me that that's happening.
Oh, okay.
So I'll have to follow up.
All right. I want to ask about housing. So, DBH housing vouchers. Now we had a whole conversation about housing, whether or not you all should still be in the housing business. I didn't really get the traction that I wanted on that conversation, so we'll keep it open with DHS. But for today, your levels are set lower than comparable to the housing for others.
They are.
Are we still able to meet the need?
Well, I think that the people who are in housing right now have been there for some time.
Yeah.
And so we haven't had people have to move. However, it limits the choices they have.
Okay.
And so I can tell you, for example, if you look at a 1-bedroom with a DBH voucher, it's 1,230 a month. If you look at DHS, it's 3,020, and if you look at DCHA, it's 3,845. And so there's a big difference in that.
Got it. Can you say those numbers just again? Because I don't think
and I can send them to you.
Yes,
I
that would
can
be
send
great,
them to
just
you.
to understand the breakout. Because
Yeah.
I don't think that even some of my colleagues appreciate that a
Mhm.
DBH voucher is half of what someone would achieve if they were in a DCHA program or in a DHS program. One of the things that we did as an initiative this year, which I think has been going well, has been this the work of community connections that have been physically in the buildings.
Yes.
Now, in the documents that we have, I've got 2 contract line items for housing. I've got I don't have the spreadsheet open, but one I'm assuming is for community connections, and then there's another one that looks almost identical maybe has a different amount of money. Are you all expanding this like, are we
No.
proposing to expand it in FY 27 or something else
No,
going on?
the line items that are within the housing program include the 8,687,355 for rental subsidies. That's for the rental subsidy
No, this is
program.
something else.
Oh, you're referring the contract?
The contracts, yeah.
We
for-
have Wayne Place at 455. And then we have 1.3 for housing case management and support with community connections. My apology. I thought she was asking for more.
No, hold on.
So it's 455,000 for Wayne Place. And that's the 32-bed facility that, and now we have 25 of our young people there. And the 1.3 for the housing support case management program.
That's what it is. Okay,
Mhm.
so in the contracts attachment that you all sent, there is a contract, there's no vendor listed, but you all indicate that this is for, quote, housing case management services that the agency anticipates. There are two different lines. There's one contract for about 1.7 million, and then there's another contract for 942,000. You didn't list a vendor. So that's why I'm asking, is this the community
That's
connections?
community connections.
All right, but why are there two lines?
Because the Wayne Place is for another vendor. That's MBI, right?
We need to check.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't be 2 points. It wouldn't be.
It wouldn't be that much.
Line 56 and line 57, if you're looking at the attachment that I'm looking at. Or at least the FY 27 contract status.
We'll have to follow up on that because it certainly would not be that amount for targeted outreach for supported housing.
Okay, that's what we're asking, because I was like, oh, maybe they're doing some vast expansion that we don't know about, or maybe this is a typo, but
Those are the two contracts that I'm aware of.
okay.
Wayne Place and housing support case management, which, as you said, has been going very well.
All right, so we'll follow up on that one to get some further details there. How many buildings is Community Connections working with at this point?
It's working with 9 apartment buildings.
Okay,
And I just met actually with one of the chairs of one of the boards last week to really get a sense of what's happening on the ground.
all right. We're rounding out the end here. Do my best, get you out of here soon. My Rides. So My Rides is the transportation program. It provides free transportation for individuals traveling to and from substance use treatment providers. Prior to the program being paused, how much did you all spend on the program?
I have to get the actual information for you on My Rides. I don't have that at my fingertips.
Okay. Now, I know why we paused it. When did the agency first become aware of the problem?
I think right before we paused it, actually. So,
Okay,
you know.
the program was operational from 21 to 25. So that's why I'm like, okay, we went 4 years and nobody said, hey, somebody is not using this the way that they should.
Yeah, well, I do know, as I've told you, we really are closely monitoring our contracts.
Yep.
And I think with that increased monitoring, we're finding and learning some things. Yes.
Okay. Do you all plan to reinstate the program, or is it permanently discontinued?
We plan to reinstate it, but with a different vendor.
Okay. Is there funding in the FY 27 budget for this program?
I will have to check the budget for that. I think that's out of SOAR. That is a SOAR grant funded effort.
The SOAR grant.
Mhm.
Okay. I hope we have some stronger operational controls, given that this is federal funding. Alrighty. Okay, we've talked about these two issues before, but I feel like in light of some recent activity, we gotta talk about it again. So, first, hoarding.
What?
Hoarding disorder.
I'm sorry. I could,
Hoarding.
oh, hoarding.
Hoarding, yep.
Yes. Okay.
Do we have particular providers that we can refer families or individuals to who can help some of our seniors who are experiencing this? Hoarding is a disorder. It is.
Yeah, I went, yes.
No one
I'm
chooses to
I'm very
live
well aware of
in that type
yeah.
of environment.
I do know that there is a hoarding group that really involves representatives from various agencies. But we don't have a particular provider that specializes in hoarding. All of the certified providers address it as it comes up. But we don't have a particular certification for hoarding.
Okay, so if somebody called, like if I called you and I was
Mental
like,
health issue.
my aunt is having an issue,
Mm-hmm.
how would you help me? How would you refer to me?
I would refer you to one of our core service agencies that would work with you around hoarding as a part of your mental health treatment.
Okay, so fire and EMS they see a lot. Just
Mhm.
say that they see a lot. They go into homes for all different types of
Yeah,
reasons.
so have I. Mhm.
If they went into a home where they went in for a particular medical reason, but observations suggest that
Mhm.
it's unsafe,
Mhm.
how would they refer it?
They generally would contact me
Yep.
or my agency so that we could have our mental health professionals, go out to support that person. Because we know it's a fire hazard. I mean, it's a hazard. We know
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
I feel like we need a bit more in terms of our evidence-based treatment. We have a lot of seniors who live in the
Mhm.
district. We have a lot of seniors who are aging in place, which is great. We desire that for them. I want them there. I don't
Okay.
necessarily, not everybody needs to be in an institution or a nursing home facility, et cetera. But it poses some public safety challenges significantly.
Mhm.
If a fire were to break out, well, that, but also there have been some calls where EMS can't even get into a person's home. And I don't know, it just feels weird to just refer someone just to a core service agency as opposed to someone who is more specialized in that work.
Well, actually, go ahead. I know Dr. Burhow looked into this because prior to.
Yeah, I can at least answer pieces of this,
Okay.
right? Because some of it is coordination with DACL as well.
Okay.
Because DACL is the kind of agency that supports seniors, that
Yes.
when they're experiencing cases of people that are hoarding, then they're sometimes referring to us, particularly in the integrated care division,
Okay.
around support for people because actually hoarding is one of those interesting things. Yes, it's a disorder, but from a DBH perspective, we'd be looking for another major mental illness diagnosis that's more the wheelhouse of the CSA. But those referrals still come to us from DACL
do.
with, I don't think this person has anything else as a major mental illness, but the hoarding is significant. We do partner with them either through a CSA or through that intensive care coordination to try to help resolve the hoarding issue. DACL actually has the resources around it
Okay.
to pay for the cleaners, for the storage, for like actually cleaning up the environment resources, where we're providing the treatment resources, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right.
And then through FEMS right now, even in crisis services, one of the things that we're working on with FEMS is they've set up a community task force with a lot of different agencies around people that they are responding to consistently, frequently as a familiar face to us then kind of case conference those
Yep.
across multiple agencies. And DBH is involved in that, where we're then supporting FEMS in their concerns around, look, we've seen this person 10 times a month or more. What can you do for us healthcare finance? What can you do for us DBH? What can you do for us DACL?
How often do those case conferences happen?
They're happening monthly right now.
Okay. Because I do know that they're frequent. callers, particularly for 911 and others.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, need more than just that single service call. Because sometimes their cost for service is not a real call for service, if that makes sense. Okay. Similar, nope, stay there. Similar, but a little bit different. Which we've kind of seen a heightened problems around, which is gambling disorder. And in the past, former colleague Councilmember McDuffie would transfer money around gambling disorder. It was like $300,000 or in
right.
this current fiscal
Yeah, I
year
can respond to that.
for that. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, actually, one of the things to note, you're right. We had $300,000 in our budget several years ago. We did provide training to our core service agencies around gambling, specific intervention strategies. However, gambling services are currently available within our SPA, our state plan amendment.
Okay.
And our Medicaid billable right now. We have actually 19 providers within our system that are actually billing for gambling, addiction and disorder services. Most of them are FQACs. We have MDs and addiction counselors also billing for that. The services that they're getting are screening services, diagnostic assessment, counseling services, therapy, inpatient hospitalization. And also one of the things that I want the public to note is there is a hotline number for people with problem gambling. And that hotline number is 800-697-3738. The other thing to note is that within the District of Columbia, similar to Maryland, there also is a self-exclusion program for DC Lottery and sports and wagering. And so what that means is if I know that I have a gambling problem and I need some support so that I don't do that, I can get myself excluded from those facilities and those activities. For example, if I wanted to go to the casino, as I approach the casino, like I know particularly
the
the
facial
one that's in
recognition?
Maryland, they can identify you right there. They turn you around, and they give you connections to support. But in terms of our providers, Mary Center, which is one of our providers, Family Wellness and District Health have all billed for those services. However, it's limited. Only a few people are getting it, but it is available.
Well, I think it's the availability part.
Correct.
I watched like a little snippet of the NFL draft last night. And even then on, NBA playoffs is going on. I know this is hard because now we have these leagues themselves who are promoting all different types of gambling, right? Like, oh, you could just gamble on a play. You don't even have to gamble on the whole game, or like these little snippets here or there. And then add in Poly Market and Kalshi and some of these others. We've seen sort of the impacts on from the athlete and player perspective, particularly student athletes who are getting threats from people because like they missed their particular gambling mark. People get and so it's coming at people from all areas, but for some people, you shouldn't be gambling because it is an addiction for you.
That's why voluntary
if you
exclusion works.
are ready to recognize the addiction and you're ready to do the work, I want to make sure that we're able to provide the services to those individuals.
Yes, and also, when I was in Maryland and also since I've come back here, I certainly have outreach to the National Center on Excellence in Gambling, which is in Maryland, actually. And they are the ones who actually provided the training for our providers. I think it was either a year ago or two.
Do we provide ongoing training?
I have not provided additional training.
I think that was one-time money, maybe.
That was one-time money.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We'll look at that. Dr. Bazaran, is there I asked you a lot. thank you to your team. I asked you guys a lot. Sometimes budget, it feels like a cavity search, but it's out of love. We want to make sure that the public dollars are being spent well. Is there anything I haven't asked you that you want to mention for the record? We'll obviously follow up with your team on some of the things we'll follow up on.
Well, okay, go ahead with your update and then I'll do my close.
Thank you, Dr. Basron. So I did want to confirm for you that the contracts for housing case management are for community connections. It's on two different lines because the contract crosses fiscal years.
All right, we'll follow up on that. There was no vendor listed, so. just
Those
one-
are the only two I knew about.
Okay,
That's it.
all right.
But one of the things that I would like to say is I really want to applaud my staff for the work that they do every day, and also the work that we have done together along with your staff in terms of preparing for our hearing. We thank you for your support, and certainly we are very appreciative of the support of our mayor in ensuring that individuals with behavioral health care services get the services they need. It's been my pleasure to really be a part of that.
Great. Well, this concludes my public questioning here. I want to thank you, Dr. Bazaran. I want to thank Commissioner Woods. I want to thank the teams from Department of Behavioral Health as well as the team from the Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking. So we'll certainly reach out to you folks as we careen towards our deadline here later in May. This does conclude today's hearing, and so it does conclude the total hearing for both Department of Behavioral Health as well as Department of Insurance, Securities and Banking for this budget cycle. If the public record is going to remain open until Friday, May 8th. So until then, written testimony can be submitted on the Council Hearing Management System site at dccouncil.gov/hearings. The next budget hearing for this committee will be on Monday, April 27th at 9:30 a.m. We'll be in room 412, and that hearing will be for the public witness testimony. Again, only the public witnesses for the Department of Healthcare Finance, as well as the Deputy Mayor for Health and Human Services. The time is 12:35 p.m. and this hearing is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. I don't appreciate it though. Yeah, bro, thank you.